He was just fixing a broken light. He opened the wrong door. Inside, a woman he'd never seen before was pinned against a desk, her blouse torn, her eyes screaming something her mouth couldn't. Before Noah Bennett could speak, security slammed him against the wall. Cameras flashed. Someone shouted the word assault. By sunset, he was jobless, branded, blacklisted, a single father with a 7-year-old son, and rent due in 9 days. But the woman he'd attacked? She wasn't who anyone thought she was. And the real predator was already hunting them both. If this story reaches you, drop a like and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Stay until the end, because what happens in the next 2 hours will leave you speechless. The alarm on Noah Bennett's phone went off at 4:47 in the morning, the same as every other weekday, and for a long moment he just lay there staring at the water stain on the ceiling above his bed. The stain had been there when he moved in. It had a shape he'd never been able to name, something between a horse and a hand, and over the years it had become the first thing he saw when he woke up, and the last thing he saw before he turned out the light. He didn't know why he was thinking about it now. Maybe because he hadn't slept, not really. Maybe because somewhere in the back of his mind he already knew that today was going to be the kind of day that broke a man. He swung his legs off the mattress and sat up. The spring in the frame groaned. From the other side of the thin bedroom wall, he could hear the soft whistle of his son breathing, the kind of breath that only a kid who trusted the world completely could make. Liam was 7. Liam had no idea that the rent was 11 days late, or that the car needed a new alternator, or that the tuition for summer reading camp had come due 2 weeks ago and Noah had been eating peanut butter for dinner to cover it. Liam just knew that his dad was always there in the morning with cereal and in the evening with a story, and that was enough for him. For a kid, love looks a lot like consistency. Noah pulled on his work pants, the navy ones with the patch on the right knee where Liam had dropped a crayon, and Noah had tried to sew it himself. He buttoned his shirt. Bennett, it said on the chest, in small white embroidered letters. Building technician. He stared at the name on his own chest for a second longer than usual. In the kitchen, he poured 2 bowls of the store-brand cornflakes and cut a banana between them. He made coffee in the old drip machine that took 7 minutes to heat up and another 5 to push water through the grounds. He drank it black. He'd started taking it black 2 years ago, when Marcy had left and taken the sugar bowl with her, and it had felt so stupid to buy a new one that he'd just decided to learn to drink it bitter. Now he couldn't remember the last time he'd put anything in it. Daddy! Liam was in the kitchen doorway in his dinosaur pajamas, his hair sticking up in every direction, one cheek red from the pillow. Hey, bud. I had a dream about the ocean again. Yeah? Good one or bad one? Good. There was a turtle. A big one? Huge. Liam held his arms wide. Bigger than the car. Man, that's a lot of turtle. Liam climbed up onto the chair and pulled the bowl toward himself. He ate with that total concentration only small kids can manage, like the cereal was a problem he had to solve. Noah watched him and felt something twist in his chest that he couldn't have named out loud. Some fathers, he thought, would be able to tell their kid about the ocean. Some fathers had taken their kid to see a real one. Noah had never been west of Cleveland. He had never flown on a plane. He promised himself, for maybe the 1,000th time, that he would take Liam to see the ocean before the boy turned 10. I gotta go to work, little man. Is Aunt Dee coming? She's picking you up for school, same as always. Okay. Noah leaned down and kissed the top of his son's head. The kid smelled like sleep and the cheap shampoo from the dollar store. Noah closed his eyes for just a second, breathing him in, and then he stood up and grabbed his tool belt from the hook by the door. Love you, bud. Love you too, Dad. Noah walked down 3 flights of stairs because the elevator had been broken for a week, and the landlord didn't seem to care. In the parking lot, the old Civic started on the 3rd try. He drove the 22 minutes to downtown with the radio off, because the radio was one more thing he didn't want to pay for, and he'd canceled the subscription in March. He rehearsed in his head what he had to do that morning. The HVAC on the 19th floor was still whining. The water heater in the gym on sublevel 2 needed the sacrificial anode replaced. Somebody had put in a work order about a flickering light on the 41st. Routine, easy, numbers on a list. That was the whole beauty of being a building technician. The world broke, you fixed it, nobody asked you your opinions on anything. The building was called Meridian Tower. 57 floors of glass and steel in the heart of the financial district, owned by a holding company leased to the Vance Corporation, which took up the top 20 floors for its headquarters and let the rest out to banks and law firms. Noah had worked there for 4 years. He had seen 3 CEOs come and go. He had fixed every toilet in the building at least twice. He had memorized the electrical plans the way some men memorize scripture. He swiped his badge at the service entrance at 6:14. The guard at the desk, a heavy man named Gus with a mustache that was too ambitious for his face, grunted at him. "Bennett." "Morning, Gus. You see the game?" "Nah, working late." "You didn't miss much. Bullpen fell apart in the 9th. They always do." Noah rode the service elevator up, making his stops. The 19th floor HVAC was a seized bearing in a blower fan. 40 minutes with a wrench and a new part from the supply closet. The gym water heater was simpler. The anode came out black as a piece of coal, and he swapped it for a new one. By 8:40, he was on the 41st, standing under a recessed light in a hallway of the Vance Corporation's legal department, flipping the bulb. The ballast was bad. He'd need to pull the fixture. He scribbled it on his clipboard and thought about what else he had on his plate. Then the radio on his hip crackled. "Bennett, this is dispatch. You got a report of a sticking door on 48, executive level. Owner wants it fixed before 11. Noah pressed the button. "Copy. Which office?" Static. Then, 4807, West Corridor. Executive level. The 48th floor was Vance Corporation's upper management, the floor below the board level, the floor where the senior vice presidents and the directors had their corner offices. Noah had been up there maybe a dozen times in 4 years. You didn't go to 48 unless you were called. He took the elevator up. The doors opened onto a corridor lined with dark wood paneling and carpet so thick his boots sank into it. The lighting was indirect, warm, the kind of lighting rich people paid extra for. A receptionist at a long desk looked up at him over the rims of her glasses and then looked back down at her screen without speaking. He walked past her, reading the numbers on the doors. 4801, 4803, 4805. Somewhere behind him, a phone rang and was answered. He found 4807 at the end of the west corridor. The door was solid mahogany with a brass plate that read, in engraved script, A. Vance. Noah didn't know anyone by that name on 48, but then he didn't know most of the people on 48. He knocked twice, politely. No answer. He knocked again, a little louder. Building maintenance. Nothing. Dispatch had said the owner wanted it fixed before 11, which meant either the owner was inside and didn't hear him, or the owner wasn't inside and had left word for him to go in anyway. He tried the handle. It turned, and the door swung open about an inch before catching on something. That was the sticking problem, right there. Misaligned hinges, probably. An easy job. He pushed a little harder. The door opened another few inches, and now he could hear sounds from inside that made his hand freeze on the handle. Something thumping, a chair maybe. A muffled voice, high, sharp, a low male voice saying something he couldn't make out. For about 2 seconds, Noah Bennett stood in the corridor of the 48th floor of Meridian Tower and told himself that whatever was happening on the other side of that door was absolutely, categorically, none of his business. He was maintenance. He would come back later. That was what smart men did. That was what men who wanted to keep their jobs did. And then the woman on the other side of the door screamed. It wasn't a loud scream. It was worse than that. It was the kind of scream that had been started and then clamped down on. The kind of sound a person makes when a hand goes over her mouth. Noah had heard that sound exactly once before in his life, 15 years ago, when he was a skinny teenager walking home from a shift at the gas station and had turned a corner in the alley behind the Rite Aid and seen something he couldn't unsee. He had been 17 years old then, and he had done nothing, because he had been scared, and he had carried that silence around in his chest like a stone for 15 years. He pushed the door open. What he saw, he would later break down frame by frame in his head for months. But in the moment, it hit him all at once. A man in a suit, middle-aged, silver at the temples, his back mostly to the door. A woman pushed down against the surface of a mahogany desk, her dark hair spilling across the blotter, one shoe missing, the side seam of her white blouse ripped open from her waist to her ribs. The man had one hand on the back of her neck and the other was somewhere Noah couldn't see. The woman's eyes were wide open and they locked onto Noah's the instant he stepped into the doorway, and in those eyes he saw a lifetime of terror compressed into a single silent plea. "Hey." His voice came out strange, flat, from somewhere outside himself. "Hey, stop." The man whipped around. He was older than Noah had thought, 50s, maybe 60, clean-shaven, a pale scar along one jawline. His tie was loose. His face was red. For a single moment, his expression was pure animal rage. Caught, exposed, and then, and Noah would remember this for the rest of his life, it smoothed over. Just like that. Like a curtain falling. The red drained out of him and was replaced by something cold and calm and calculating. "Get out," the man said quietly. The woman was already scrambling off the desk, clutching the front of her blouse together, stumbling backward until her shoulder blades hit the window behind her. She made a small, choked sound. She couldn't have been more than 23 or 24. She had the kind of face that belonged on a magazine, but right then her mascara was running in black tracks down her cheeks, and her lipstick was smeared across her mouth, and her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold her shirt closed. "Are you okay?" Noah said to her. "Ma'am, are you okay?" "Get out," the older man said again, louder now. He stepped between Noah and the woman, blocking Noah's view of her. "This is a private office. You are trespassing." "I'm maintenance," Noah said. "Somebody called about the door." "The door is fine." "She's not fine." The man's jaw tightened. He reached slowly for the phone on his desk, keeping his eyes on Noah, and lifted the receiver and pressed a single button. "Security to 4807, he said into it, still calm, still watching Noah. "I have an intruder. He's aggressive. Please hurry." Behind him, the woman made a sound like she was trying to speak, and couldn't. She was shaking her head. She was mouthing something at Noah. "Ma'am," Noah said, and he took a step into the office. "It's okay. He didn't finish the sentence because right then 2 security guards came through the door behind him. They were big men. He knew them a little. The one on the left was named Derek, and the one on the right was named Ray, and Noah had helped them rewire a break-room microwave about 6 months ago. They were reasonable men, the kind who said good morning in the elevator. They did not say good morning now. "On the ground," Derek said. "Hands behind your head. Wait, hold on. There's a woman—" "On the ground, Bennett." "Derek, listen to me." Ray grabbed his right arm and twisted it up behind his back in one practiced motion, and Noah's face went into the thick carpet. The side of his jaw, the smell of carpet cleaner and dust. His tool belt dug into his hip. A plastic zip tie clicked around his wrists. His own tools, his own hallway, his own building. "He attacked me," the woman was saying now, in a thin, shaking voice. He just came in. He grabbed me." Noah's head snapped up. "What?" "He tried to—" Her voice cracked. "He tried to—" "What are you doing?" Noah said. He was staring at her face, which was turned away from him now, her hair falling over her eyes. "What are you saying? I just walked in. The older man put a hand on the woman's shoulder, very gently, the way you might comfort a daughter. "It's all right, Miss Vance," he said softly. "It's over now. You're safe. Miss Vance." A. Vance. Noah's brain, which had been trying to keep up for the last 40 seconds, skipped and caught. "I didn't do anything," Noah said. His voice was loud now. Too loud. The voice of a man trying to convince people who had already stopped listening. "I opened the door. The door was on my work order. I walked in and he had her on the desk. He had his hand—" "That's enough," Derek said. "Look at her shirt. Look at her shirt. I didn't do that. I just walked in the door. I swear to God, she was already—" "Bennett, shut up." Ray hauled him to his feet. Noah's knees were shaking. He looked at the woman again. She had turned her face into the older man's shoulder. She was weeping. Her shoulders were heaving. She looked exactly like a victim. She looked exactly like a young woman who had just been attacked by a stranger in a uniform. Only, and Noah would be certain about this later, certain in a way he could not prove to anyone, when they marched him past her toward the door, she lifted her eyes for one instant and looked straight at him. And in that one instant, there was no terror in her face at all. There was something much worse. There was an apology. Then she looked away, and they took him out of the office and down the hall. And the receptionist who had ignored him on the way in was standing up behind her desk now, one hand over her mouth, watching him go. The holding room on the ground floor of Meridian Tower was a small beige box with a metal table and two metal chairs and a one-way mirror. Noah sat in one of the chairs with his hands cuffed in front of him now, the plastic replaced with real steel by somebody from corporate security. He had been in the room for 40 minutes. Nobody had come in. Nobody had offered him water. The lights buzzed. He tried to keep his breathing even, tried to think, tried to remember every detail of what he had seen, because he knew that if he didn't fix it in his head right now, he was going to start doubting it. That was how memory worked when you were scared. It sanded off the edges, softened the truth, let you start wondering if maybe you'd misread the situation. He had not misread the situation. The man had had his hand on her neck. The shirt had been ripped at the side seam, not the buttons. The buttons were all still buttoned. Whoever tore that shirt had torn it in one motion, from the side. She hadn't been fighting a lover. She had been fighting to get away. The door opened. A man in a charcoal suit came in. He was about 40, thin, with glasses, and the kind of careful haircut that cost more than Noah's rent. He had a folder in one hand and a legal pad in the other. He sat down across from Noah and didn't introduce himself. Mr. Bennett. Yeah. My name is Peter Holbrook. I'm senior counsel for Vance Corporation. I want a lawyer. You're not under arrest, Mr. Bennett. You're being detained while we investigate a serious allegation. I'd like to discuss your options. My option is to talk to a lawyer. Holbrook opened the folder. He turned it so Noah could see. There was a photograph, apparently pulled from a security camera. It showed Noah standing inside the office, his hand extended toward the woman, her shirt torn, her mouth open, her hand raised as if to ward him off. It was, Noah had to admit, a devastating photograph. The angle was perfect. You couldn't see the older man at all. This is the still from the hallway camera at 9:07 this morning, Holbrook said. Miss Vance has filed a complaint. She says you followed her into the office and assaulted her. 2 witnesses, both senior employees, heard her scream. 2 witnesses. Yes. The guy in the office with her is a witness? Mr. Keller is the chief operating officer of the Vance Corporation. He heard Miss Vance scream and entered the office to render aid. His testimony is consistent with hers. Noah laughed. It came out cracked and ugly. He was the one on top of her. Holbrook blinked once, slowly, like a lizard. Mr. Bennett, I'd advise you not to make that kind of accusation. It's not an accusation. It's what I saw. What you saw is a matter of perspective. What we have is a photograph, a complaint from the alleged victim, and the statement of a senior executive. What you have is a work history, a young son, and an apartment you are significantly behind on rent for. Noah went still. Holbrook smiled thinly. Yes, we've had a chance to review your file. You looked at my rent. We ran a basic background check as part of our incident response protocol. It's standard. You looked at my kid. Mr. Bennett, I'm going to be very direct with you because I think you're a direct person. The Vance Corporation has no interest in destroying your life. What happened this morning was, in our view, a tragic misunderstanding, most likely brought on by the stress of your personal circumstances. If you are willing to sign a non-disclosure agreement and a voluntary termination of employment, effective today, we're prepared to offer you 3 months of severance and to not, I repeat, not pursue criminal charges. Noah stared at him. 3 months? He said. 3 months. You want me to admit I did it? We want you to sign a document that says nothing happened and that you are leaving voluntarily. The matter is closed. You walk out of here today. You find another job. And if I don't sign, Holbrook closed the folder. Then the police will be called. Miss Vance will press charges. There will be a trial. You will spend the next 18 months and whatever money you don't have trying to fight this. Your son will watch his father be arraigned on television. Your employment prospects for the remainder of your life will be permanently altered. And in my professional assessment, you will lose. Noah looked at the one-way mirror. He thought about Liam. He thought about the water stain on the ceiling. He thought about the woman's face when she'd looked at him on the way out of the office, the apology in her eyes. He thought about the fact that 3 months of severance would cover the rent until August, and then he would be out on the street with his kid. She wasn't a victim of mine, he said quietly. I'm not asking you to say she was. You're asking me to say nothing happened. I'm asking you to sign a document and move on with your life." Noah closed his eyes. He could see Keller's face, the way the rage had smoothed over into calm. He could see the girl's mouth moving silently. He could hear her scream, clamped down under a hand. "I don't want your money," he said. Holbrook's eyes flickered. "I don't want your money," Noah said again, louder. "And I'm not signing anything that says that didn't happen. I'll leave. Fire me, I don't care. Fire me right now. But I'm not putting my name on a piece of paper that says that girl was a liar, because she wasn't." There was a long pause. "Mr. Bennett," Holbrook said, and his voice had changed. It was quieter now, almost regretful. "I'd ask you to reconsider." "I'm not reconsidering. You have a son." "Don't." "I'm just reminding you that you have a son." "I said don't." Holbrook sighed, and he closed the folder, and he stood up. "Have it your way." He walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the knob. "For what it's worth," he said without turning around, "I believe you, but that won't matter." He left. They didn't arrest him. That was the part he would think about for a long time afterward. They didn't arrest him. Holbrook must have made a call, because 20 minutes later a different security guard came in and unlocked the cuffs and handed Noah his tool belt and his phone and his badge, minus the chip. The badge was cut in half. A piece of paper was stapled to the belt. It said, in capital letters, "Terminated for cause. Gross misconduct." They walked him out through the service entrance because they didn't want him in the lobby. By the time he was on the sidewalk, it was noon. He sat down on the curb next to the Civic for a while, because his legs weren't working right. His phone had 32 notifications on it. He didn't look at them. He drove home. He sat in the parking lot of his apartment building for another 20 minutes. Then he went upstairs, and he took a shower, and he stood under the water until it ran cold. And then he got dressed again, and he went to pick up his son from school like nothing had happened, because nothing else in the world was going to stop just because the bottom of his had fallen out. Liam chattered all the way home about a kid named Marcus, who had brought a turtle shell to show and tell. Noah listened. He made the right noises in the right places. He held his son's hand crossing the parking lot. It was only when they were back in the apartment and Liam was doing his homework at the kitchen table that Noah's phone started to ring. The first call was from his supervisor, Dale. Noah didn't answer. The second was from Dale again. The third was an unknown number. The fourth was his sister, Dee, whose voice on the voicemail was small and scared and said, "Noah, what's going on? My friend just texted me something from a Facebook group. Please call me back." The fifth was an unknown number. The sixth was a reporter from a local news site asking for comment on the incident at Vance Corporation this morning. The seventh was an unknown number. He went into the bathroom and closed the door and sat down on the edge of the tub and opened his phone, and with hands that weren't quite steady, he went to the Facebook page for his neighborhood. He scrolled for about 11 seconds before he found it. Somebody had posted a screenshot of an internal company memo. The memo used his name and described an incident of sexual assault that had occurred earlier today and stated that the employee in question has been terminated effective immediately and law enforcement has been notified. The post had 471 shares. The comments were already what the comments always were. Noah sat on the edge of the tub. The bathroom tiles were cold through his socks. Through the thin door, he could hear his son humming softly to himself at the kitchen table, the way he always did when he was working on a math problem he was close to solving. He did not cry. He was too tired to cry. He just sat there, with his phone dark in his hand, and he tried to understand in a slow and methodical way exactly how a man could lose his whole life in the space of 36 seconds. At 9:06 that morning, he had been a building technician with a son and a leaky ceiling and a stack of bills. At 9:07, he had opened a door. By 9:09, he was on the ground with his face in the carpet. And now it was 3 in the afternoon, and he was $42.16 away from not being able to feed his kid. The phone rang again in his hand. Unknown number. He let it go to voicemail. He sat there until he heard Liam call his name from the other room, and then he stood up, and he washed his face in the cold water from the tap, and he opened the bathroom door. "Dad, I did the whole page. Good job, bud. Can we have spaghetti?" Yeah, we can have spaghetti." He walked into the kitchen and he put a pot on to boil. He moved on autopilot. Outside, the afternoon light was starting to slant gold through the kitchen window, and somewhere in the distance a dog was barking, and life, with a kind of unbearable stupidity, was going on. He didn't hear the knock at the door at first because the water was just coming up to a boil and the fan over the stove was on. Liam heard it. Liam always heard things first. "Dad, somebody's at the door." Noah wiped his hands on a dish towel. He glanced through the peephole. There was nobody there. He opened the door anyway, slowly, keeping his body between it and Liam at the table behind him. The hallway was empty, but on the welcome mat, the brown one that said "Welcome" in chipped white letters, there was a plain white envelope. No name, no writing, just the envelope, squared up neatly, as if someone had taken the time to line it up with the edge of the mat before they walked away. Noah picked it up. He looked down the hallway both ways. Nothing. He closed the door and locked the deadbolt. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of paper, folded once. The note was typed. It said, "I know you didn't do it. I'm so sorry. Meet me tonight at 10 p.m. at the diner on 5th and Colborne. Come alone. Please. If you don't come, they'll do it to someone else." Noah read it twice. He read it a third time. Then he folded it very slowly along the same crease, and he put it back in the envelope, and he slipped the envelope into the inside pocket of his jacket, where it sat like a small weight against his ribs. "Dad," Liam said from the table, "is the water boiling?" "Yeah, bud," Noah said. He didn't turn around right away. He stood there by the door for another second, listening to the sound of his own heart, which, for the first time since 9 o'clock that morning, was beating not with fear but with something else. Something he hadn't felt in a long time. Something that, if he didn't know better, he might have called a decision. "Yeah," he said again, softer. "The water's boiling." He walked back into the kitchen, and he started to cook dinner for his son, and outside the last of the afternoon light drained out of the sky over the city. The spaghetti didn't taste like anything, but Liam ate 2 helpings and asked for garlic bread they didn't have. Noah told him they'd get some next time, and Liam accepted that the way he accepted all of Noah's small evasions, without suspicion, without question, trusting that whatever his father said would eventually come true. He went to bed at 8:30 with his stuffed fox tucked against his chin, asking for a story about a dragon who was afraid of the dark. Noah made one up on the spot. The dragon, in the story, had done something stupid by accident, and everyone in the village blamed him for it, and the dragon had to decide whether to leave the village forever or stay and try to make them see the truth. Noah didn't finish the story. He got to the part where the dragon was sitting on the edge of a cliff, thinking about what to do, and Liam's breathing had already gone soft and even. Noah sat on the edge of the bed for a long time after that. He watched his son sleep. He memorized the boy's face, the way the lashes rested against his cheek, the faint flush of heat across his forehead, the small cowlick at the back of his head that no amount of combing had ever tamed. If Noah did what he was about to do, and it went badly, this was the face he was gambling with. That was what he had to be honest with himself about. That was the bet. He went into the kitchen and called his sister. Dee picked up on the first ring. Noah, what the hell is happening?" "I'm okay." "You're not okay. I'm looking at a post right now that says you..." Her voice cracked. "It says you..." "I know what it says. Is it true?" "Dee, I'm asking, Noah. I have to ask." "No, it's not true. It's not even close to true." She was quiet for a second. He could hear her breathing, the background noise of her TV, her kids somewhere in another room. "Okay," she said finally. "Okay, what do you need?" "I need you to come get Liam tonight." "Tonight?" "I've got something I have to do and I can't leave him alone in the apartment. I don't want to explain. I just need him with you for a couple of nights, maybe more." "Noah, are you in trouble?" "I'm not in trouble. I'm trying not to be in more trouble. You're scaring me. I know, I'm sorry. Can you be here by 9:30? She didn't answer right away. He listened to her think. Dee was 2 years younger than him. She had 3 kids of her own and a husband who worked nights in a house that was too small for any of them, and she had never, in 30 years, said no to him. He didn't know what he would have done without her. He didn't know what he was going to do to her now by dragging this toward her door. "I'll be there," she said. "Thank you." "Noah, you better not be lying to me." "I'm not lying to you." "Okay." A pause. "I love you, you idiot." "Love you too." He hung up. He sat for a minute at the kitchen table. Then he went and packed a duffel bag for Liam. Pajamas, toothbrush, the stuffed fox, a spare pair of sneakers. He packed it the way he'd packed the boy for every sleepover, every overnight, every weekend at Dee's in the last 3 years, and the familiarity of the motions did something for him. It let him pretend, just for a few minutes, that this was nothing unusual. At 9:24, Dee's minivan pulled into the lot. Noah carried Liam down the stairs wrapped in his blanket, still asleep, heavy in his arms the way only a sleeping kid can be heavy. Dee opened the sliding door and Noah buckled him into the middle seat and tucked the blanket around him. "He had spaghetti," Noah said. "He already ate. He doesn't need anything before bed." "Okay. Don't let him watch the news." "Noah, just don't let him watch anything. Tell him I had to go fix something." She looked at him over the top of the van. The parking lot light was hard and yellow and made her look older than she was. "When will you be back?" "Tomorrow. If I can. If I can't, the next day." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to go talk to somebody." "Somebody who?" "Dee, the less you know about this right now, the better." Her jaw tightened. She had their mother's jaw. "You're not going to do anything stupid." "I'm going to try really hard not to." "That's not what I asked." "I know." She stared at him for a long second. Then she got in the van and shut the door and rolled down the window. "If I don't hear from you by 10 in the morning, I'm calling the police." "Okay." "I mean it, Noah. I know you do." She pulled out of the lot. Noah stood there watching the taillights disappear around the corner, and then he went back upstairs, and he put on a clean shirt, and he took the envelope out of his jacket pocket and read the note one more time. At 5 to 10, he left the apartment. He took the stairs. He didn't want to run into anyone. The diner on 5th and Colborne was called Ralph's, and it had been there since before Noah was born, and the sign out front still had the old phone exchange letters on it. The booths were red vinyl patched with duct tape, and the coffee was always burned, and the pie was actually good. Noah had taken Liam there 100 times for pancakes. He parked the Civic 3 blocks away on a side street and walked the rest. He didn't know why, exactly. It just felt like the thing you did when somebody sent you an anonymous note. It was 10 after 10 when he pushed open the door, and the little bell rang overhead. The place was mostly empty. An old man at the counter nursing a cup of coffee, a trucker in a corner booth with a plate of meatloaf, a waitress behind the register reading something on her phone. And in the last booth, against the back wall, facing the door, was the woman. She had changed everything. She was wearing a dark hoodie with the hood up and a pair of glasses, and her hair was pulled back tight. No makeup. Her face, without the makeup, looked even younger than it had that morning. She looked 22. She looked like a grad student cramming for an exam. The only thing that gave her away, to anyone who had seen her 10 hours earlier screaming silently over a desk, were her eyes. The eyes were the same, dark, too much behind them. She saw him come in. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She just met his eyes and held them, and Noah walked between the booths toward her like a man walking toward a courtroom. He slid in across from her. The red vinyl squeaked. The table had initials carved into it from decades of bored customers. She had a cup of coffee in front of her that she hadn't touched. "Mr. Bennett," she said quietly, "you know my name. I've known your name since about 1 o'clock this afternoon. I asked a friend to find out." "You've got friends." "I've got one." She looked at him for a second longer, and then she reached into the pocket of her hoodie and pulled out a small black device, about the size of a matchbook, and slid it across the table. He stared at it. "It's a signal jammer," she said, "low range. Anything in this booth that's listening isn't listening now. I want you to know that before we talk, because what I'm about to say, I can't say twice." "I don't know what a signal jammer is." "It jams signals." "Okay." The waitress came over and Noah ordered a coffee. He had no intention of drinking. The waitress glanced at the woman's untouched cup, shrugged, and walked away. When she was gone, the woman leaned forward. Her hands were on the table. They were very still. "My name is Aria Vance," she said. "I figured." "Not Miss Vance, which is what Keller called me this morning. Aria. That's what I'd prefer." "Okay, Aria. Do you know who my family is?" "I know the company's called Vance. I assume that's not a coincidence." She almost smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "My grandfather founded Vance Corporation in 1961. My father ran it for 31 years. He died 14 months ago. Heart attack, 62 years old. He was healthy. He played tennis. He didn't have a heart attack in his family, not on either side, but the medical examiner said, heart attack. And so it was heart attack. You don't think it was a heart attack. I don't know what it was. That's the problem. I don't know. I have suspicions. Why are you telling me this? Because it's the context for everything that happened today, and you deserve the context, and I don't have a lot of time. She picked up her coffee cup finally, but only to wrap her hands around it. Her knuckles were white. My father left the company to me, she said. In his will, 51% of voting shares. Everything. He did it quietly. He didn't announce it because I was 23 years old and I'd just finished business school and I had never worked a day at Vance, and he knew the board would eat me alive if they found out before I was ready. So the will was sealed and the shares were placed in a trust, and the trust was administered by a law firm my father trusted. And the plan was that I would work at the company for 1 year, quietly, as a junior analyst under a different last name, while the board continued to believe that control of the company was up for grabs. At the end of the year, on the anniversary of my father's death, I would step forward. I would be introduced as the new chair. By then I'd know the business. By then I'd know who my enemies were. And who are they? I thought I knew. I was wrong about one of them. Her jaw moved. There's a man named Walter Keller. He was my father's chief operating officer. He'd been at the company for 28 years. My father trusted him enough to make him the interim CEO during the transition. The plan was that Keller would run the company for a year, keep the seat warm, and then step down gracefully when I came forward. In exchange, he'd get a very generous retirement package and a seat on the board. But he didn't want to step down. He doesn't want to step down. He has a different plan. She took a breath. The anniversary of my father's death is in 19 days. The will becomes public. The board gets the news. If I'm alive, if I'm credible, if I'm not in a scandal, I walk in and I take the chair. If any one of those things isn't true, the bylaws have a provision. The shares go into a blind management trust. Guess who controls the blind management trust? Keller. Keller, and 2 men on the board he's been paying off for 6 years. Once they have control, they sell. There's a buyer already lined up, a private equity group that'll strip the company down to parts and hand Keller and his friends $250 million each. Noah stared at her. I'm 24, she said. I have an economics degree and 3 months of experience, and 19 days ago I figured out what they were planning. And 12 days ago Keller figured out that I figured it out. And that's how this morning happened. He did that to you on purpose. He called me into his office under a pretext. He said he needed me to review a contract. When I got there, he closed the door and She stopped. She looked down at her hands. He said that if I screamed, he'd make sure it was my scream that ended me. He said we were going to stage an assault. He said the story would be that a maintenance worker had followed me in and attacked me, and that he'd heroically intervened and that the stress would make me unfit to serve as chair, and that I'd be quietly sent to a facility to recover, and that by the time I came out, the company would be gone. He tore my shirt. He held me down. He was going to... Her voice went flat. He was going to make it real enough to sell. When the door opened and you were standing there, for 1 second I thought you were with him. I thought you were part of it. That's what the terror was. I thought he'd sent you. And then? And then I saw your face, and I knew you weren't. A long silence between them. A truck went past outside. The waitress dropped a plate somewhere behind the counter, and the old man at the counter didn't even flinch. You framed me, Noah said finally. I didn't frame you. He framed you. I played my part because if I'd said one word in your defense in that office, he would have had me committed before nightfall. I stood there and I did what he told me to do, and I watched them drag you out. And it is the worst thing I have ever done in my life, and I will owe you for it until I am dead. Noah leaned back in the booth. He looked at her. She didn't look away. Why didn't you just tell the police? He said. And say what? That the acting CEO of a $2 billion company tried to rape me in his office to rig a succession dispute that doesn't legally exist yet. With what evidence? My torn shirt. Against his statement, his fixer's statement, the security footage they'd already cut. She shook her head. They have the cameras, they have the lawyers, they have the PR firm, They have a police chief's brother on the board of a subsidiary. By the time my complaint hit a desk, I'd be the unstable heiress and Keller would be the concerned steward. I go to the police. I'm in a psych ward by Sunday. So what are you doing? I'm sitting across from the one person in this entire city who can destroy him. Me. You. Noah laughed. It came out wrong. Lady, I'm a building maintenance guy. I've got $42 in my checking account. I got fired today. I got my name dragged through the mud on the internet. I can't destroy anybody. I can't even afford a lawyer. You don't need a lawyer. You need a wire and a reason for Walter Keller to be in a room with you. He stared at her. Are you insane? He said. Probably. A little. You want me to, what? Go back into that building? No. Good, because I'm not. I want you to get him out of that building. On your terms, in a place he doesn't control, where I can have my own people listening. I want you to make him think you're about to go public with what you saw. I want you to make him think you'll take money to go away. I want you to get him to explain in his own words what he did and why. And I want you to get him to do it on tape. And then what? And then I release it. To the board. To the press. To the SEC. All of it. In one drop. He goes down. I step forward. The company gets its chair. Your name is cleared publicly, on camera, by the woman who was supposedly the victim. Your record is expunged. Your old job is there if you want it, or any other job you want. You have a son, Mr. Bennett. Liam. He's 7. He likes dinosaurs. Noah went very still. How do you know his name? I told you, I asked a friend I've known for 6 hours. You had somebody look at my kid. I had somebody look at you. Your kid came with you. I'm sorry. Don't ever... He leaned across the table. His voice was low and not calm. Don't ever have anybody look at my kid. I won't. I mean it. I know you do. I won't. He sat back. He was breathing harder than he realized. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. The waitress came by with his coffee and set it down and walked away, and neither of them looked at her. You're asking me to put a wire on and go meet the guy who 10 hours ago had the chief of security throw me in a holding room, he said. You're asking me to bait a man who tried to rape his own niece to steal a company from her. Not his niece. Whatever. He's not my uncle. He's not blood. He worked with my father. Great, great. That's the part we needed to clear up. I'm just being accurate. I'm asking you if you understand what you're asking me to do. I understand exactly what I'm asking you to do. I also understand that you're the only person in the world who has standing to do it. You saw it. You were the only other person in the room. Anyone else on Earth walks up to Walter Keller and tries to have this conversation, they get shut down in 10 seconds. You walk up to him, the man he already threw away his reputation and mind to burn, and he will listen. He will listen because he has to know what you know. He will listen because he can't afford for you to be loose. He will listen because he's scared, Mr. Bennett. Right now, tonight, he is scared. He doesn't know why you didn't take the settlement. Nobody in his life has ever not taken the settlement. You're a variable, and people like him hate variables. I don't know how to do this. I'll teach you. I don't have the nerves for this. You opened the door this morning. I opened the door because I didn't know what was on the other side. That's exactly right, she said. And tomorrow, you're going to open another one for the same reason. He looked at her. The overhead light was catching a cut on her lower lip he hadn't noticed before, small, scabbed over, from a tooth. He looked at the way her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee she hadn't drunk any of. He thought about the apology in her eyes when they'd walked him out of the office. He thought about how easy it would be to stand up right now and walk out of this diner and drive home and spend the next 6 months explaining to every employer who Googled his name that no, really, he hadn't done it. It was a misunderstanding. He was a good guy. Please, just give him a chance. If I do this, he said slowly, and something happens to my son. Nothing will happen to your son. You can't promise me that. No, I can't. But I can tell you that if you don't do this, something is almost certainly going to happen to mine. Not literally mine. The company. The people in it. My father's name. Everything he built. And a man who would do what he did to me this morning is a man who is capable of a lot of things, and the longer he stays in the chair of that company, the more money and power he has to do them with. I'm asking you to stop him. I'm asking you to be the one who stops him. Not because you owe me, because you saw it, and because nobody else did. She reached into her hoodie and pulled out a plain white envelope, thicker than the one she'd left at his door. She set it on the table between them. "What's that?" he said. $32,000. He didn't touch it. "That's not a bribe," she said. "That's not a payoff. That's 10 months of your rent and food, and whatever your kid needs for as long as this takes. It comes out of my personal account. It doesn't touch Vance. You take it whether you help me or not. If you walk out of this diner tonight and never see me again, you keep it, and you owe me nothing. It's for what happened to you this morning. It's the one thing I can actually put my hands on right now to try to make a dent in what I did." Noah looked at the envelope. "I don't want your money," he said quietly. "That's what you said to Holbrook." "He told you?" "No, I know, because if you wanted their money, you'd have signed. You said no to 3 months of severance this morning when you had $42 in your account. You don't want money, I know." "Then why is it on the table?" "Because you're a father, and because your pride is a luxury your kid doesn't have. You don't have to touch it tonight. You don't have to take it if you walk away. But it's yours. That's the only part of this conversation that isn't a question." He stared at the envelope for a long time. "I don't want it," he said. "I heard you. I want my name back." "I know. I want my job back, or I want something as good as my job, and I want it on paper, and I want it legal, and I want the record of what happened today erased in a way that nobody can ever find it again. Done. I want your word that if this goes wrong and something happens to me, my son lands somewhere safe, somewhere with my sister, and I want college paid for, in a trust, in his name, that nobody in your company can touch." She didn't hesitate. "Done." "Don't say done that fast. Think about it." "I've thought about it since 3 o'clock this afternoon, Mr. Bennett. I spent 4 hours in a parking garage today, writing numbers on a legal pad. I know what I'm offering you. Your sister is named Diandra. She goes by Dee. She lives on Perry Avenue. She has 3 kids. Her husband works at the freight yard. Your son will be fine. There's already a trust document drafted. I will sign it tomorrow morning. I will hand you the executed copy before you ever meet Walter Keller. That's not a promise. That's a transaction. And if you want to see my lawyer first, you can meet her at 8 a.m. Noah was quiet. He turned the coffee cup in a slow circle with his fingertips. "My sister doesn't know any of this," he said. "She doesn't need to. If I die, she needs to know. If anything happens to you, the first person who will be told is Diandra Bennett. The second person will be the FBI. The third will be the New York Times. I have prepared packets. They exist already. They go out automatically if I stop checking in. I am not going to die, Mr. Bennett. Neither are you. But I'm not going into this without a dead man's switch, and neither should you." "You've got a dead man's switch. I've had a dead man's switch for 11 days. "How old are you?" 24. Jesus. I had a good father. The words hit him sideways. He didn't know why. He looked at her again, really looked at her, at the tired, fierce 24-year-old face across the booth, and for the first time that day, he felt something that wasn't fear or anger. It was closer to recognition. He knew this feeling. This was what he looked like in the mirror at 3 a.m. when the bills were laid out on the kitchen counter. This was what it looked like when somebody had decided to keep going anyway. "I don't trust you," he said. "You shouldn't. You don't know me. You're asking me to put my life in your hands. I'm asking you to let me put mine in yours. That's the trade. It cuts both ways." He laughed, dry and tired. "You're good. You know that? I had a good teacher. Your dad." "Yeah." "What was his name?" "Edward. Edward Vance." "Yes." "I'm sorry about your dad." She blinked. Twice. She looked down at the table. She didn't say thank you. She just nodded. Very small, very tight. "Tell me what I'd have to do," Noah said. She exhaled. Her shoulders dropped just a quarter of an inch, but he saw it. Something in her had been holding its breath, and now it wasn't. She straightened up. "You'd need to reach out to him, not in person. A text from a burner number I'll give you. Something short. Something that scares him, but not so much he runs. You say you want to talk. You say you've been thinking about his offer and you want to discuss an additional consideration. You don't say wire. You don't say police. You don't say any word that spooks him. You set the meeting. He picks the place. You agree to it, unless it's his office. If he says his office, You say no. Neutral ground. You're not an idiot. You suggest a hotel bar, a park bench, somewhere he can't have 6 guys pre-positioned, somewhere my people can be nearby. Who are your people? A security consultant named Ramirez who used to work for my father, 2 ex-federal agents, 1 signal specialist, 4 total, and me. All of them paid by me out of my personal funds, none of them connected to Vance. How do I know they're not connected to Vance? You don't. I can show you their files. I can give you their names. You can look them up tonight. If you're not satisfied by morning, we don't do this. How do I wear a wire? You don't wear one. Those get found. What you'll have is a pen and a phone and a button on a jacket, and whichever one he lets near him is the one that catches him. 3 redundancies. Ramirez knows what he's doing. When? Tomorrow night. Day after at the latest. The longer we wait, the more time he has to plan. He's already called 2 different PR firms today. He's going into offense mode. If we wait a week, he's surrounded by a phalanx and we can't get near him. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. I need a day. You have a day. We meet at my lawyer's office at 8 a.m. You see the trust document. You see the severance contract. You see the people who will be in the room when you meet him. Then you tell me yes or no. If you say no, you walk out and I never contact you again and the $32,000 stays with you. If you say yes, we spend the rest of the day getting you ready. And if we get him, I'm in control of Vance Corporation by the end of next week. Your name is cleared in a press conference I give personally. Your severance is replaced with a job offer at 3 times your old salary, in a position of your choosing. Your record is expunged. Your son has a trust fund. You have my number for the rest of your life. And if anything ever happens to you or to anyone you love, I will move the world for you. That is the deal. That's a hell of a deal. It's the deal of a desperate woman with nothing left to bargain with except everything. Take it or don't. He sat there. He looked at her. He looked at the envelope on the table. He looked out the window at the street, at the orange glow of a streetlight, at a cab going past with its off-duty light on. He thought about his son asleep in the back of Dee's minivan, the blanket tucked up around his chin. He thought about the woman this morning with her eyes locked on his in terror. He thought about the water stain on his bedroom ceiling, shaped like a horse or a hand, and the way he had lain under it that morning, already knowing, without knowing how, that something was coming. He thought about Walter Keller's face, the way the rage had smoothed into calm. "Okay," he said. She let out a breath. "Okay," she said. "I want to see the lawyer. She'll be there. I want to see the trust in my son's name. It'll be there. I want a copy for my sister. Done. And if this goes wrong," he said, "I want you to tell my boy that his dad wasn't what they said he was. You look him in the face and you tell him." She didn't look away. "I'll tell him," she said. "I'll tell him everything you did." Noah nodded once. He pushed the envelope back across the table toward her. "I'm not taking that tonight. Tomorrow after I see the trust, I'll take it. Not before." She smiled, then a small, real smile, the first he'd seen from her. "That's the first thing you've done that made me sure I was right about you." "Don't be sure about me. I'm still figuring out if I'm about to make the stupidest decision of my life." "You are," she said. "But only one of the 2 stupidest. The other one was the one I made this morning when I let him close the door." "You didn't let him." "I walked in on my own." "So did I." They sat there for another second. The waitress drifted past. The signal jammer on the table blinked a tiny green light. Noah reached for his coffee and took 1 sip. It was bad. He pushed it aside. "Where do we meet tomorrow?" he said. She slid a card across the table. It had an address and a time. No name. He pocketed it. "One more thing," he said, standing up. "Yeah? If anyone goes near my son between now and then, the deal is off, and I burn every one of you." "Nobody will. I mean it." "I know you do, Mr. Bennett." "Noah. Just Noah." "Noah." She inclined her head. "Arya." He walked out of the diner. The bell rang overhead. The night air was cool and smelled like somebody had been frying onions down the block. He walked the 3 blocks to his car slowly, taking the long way, checking the reflections in windows the way he'd seen people do in movies, feeling ridiculous and not ridiculous at the same time. He got in the Civic and he sat behind the wheel for a minute with his hands at 10 and 2, and he didn't start the engine. He thought about his life an hour ago and his life now. An hour ago, he was a guy who had gotten fired. Now he was a man in a conspiracy, a man with a plan, a man who had just agreed to stand across a table from the person who had destroyed him and try to make him confess. He thought, for one stupid second, about the dragon in the story he'd told Liam. Then he started the engine, and he pulled out into the quiet street, and he drove home. The apartment was still quiet when he came in. He hadn't realized how much of the quiet, of every quiet in his life, had been the shape of his son inside it. The rooms felt wrong without Liam breathing somewhere down the hall. He walked through the kitchen, and he put the unwashed pasta pot in the sink, and he stood at the counter with his hands flat on the laminate, and he let his head hang for about 30 seconds. Then he went to the closet in the bedroom. On the top shelf, behind a box of his old yearbooks, was a shoebox. He pulled it down. Inside the shoebox, wrapped in a dish towel, was a revolver. It had been his father's. He hadn't fired it in 8 years. It had 6 shells in the cylinder. He hadn't cleaned it in that time either, and he wasn't going to carry it tomorrow, and he wasn't going to need it. He told himself that twice. He put the box back. He sat down on the edge of the bed. He took out the card Arya had given him and looked at the address. He took out his phone and he Googled it. It was an office building in a nice part of downtown, a reputable building, a law firm he vaguely recognized from billboards. He lay back on the bed with his shoes on. He stared at the water stain on the ceiling. He still couldn't decide if it looked like a horse or a hand. He fell asleep around 2. He didn't dream. When his alarm went off at 6, he sat up and he looked at the ceiling once more. And he said to the empty room, to nobody, to his son, who was 4 miles away and safe, "All right." Then he got up and he put on a clean shirt, a different one, not the work one with his name on it. And he made a cup of coffee he didn't taste, and he locked the apartment behind him. The sun wasn't up yet. The sky was a kind of bruise. He drove the Civic downtown through the empty streets. The traffic lights cycled through green and yellow and red with nobody to tell them anything. Somewhere out there, Walter Keller was drinking his own coffee in a big house he hadn't paid for, confident that a working-class maintenance man had taken the money and would disappear, the way working-class maintenance men always did. Somewhere out there, a girl with a cut on her lip was sitting in a lawyer's office at 6:30 in the morning, reading documents and signing them one by one. Somewhere out there, his son was still asleep in a bed that wasn't his, with a stuffed fox under his chin, dreaming about a turtle the size of a car. Noah Bennett gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. The city slid past his windows. He drove toward the address on the card, toward the day he'd agreed to have, toward the man he was about to become. In his rearview mirror, a single car followed him, 3 lengths back, keeping pace. He noticed it. He didn't speed up. He didn't slow down. He just watched it in the mirror for a block, and then for another block, and then for another, and when it finally turned off at a side street and disappeared, he let out a breath he hadn't known he was holding. He kept driving. The car that had followed him peeled off at 12th Street, and Noah tried to decide whether that meant he was being paranoid, or whether it meant whoever had been in it had already gotten whatever they'd needed from the first 6 blocks. He couldn't tell. He was going to have to get used to not being able to tell. The address on the card led him to a brick building on Chester Avenue, 8 stories, with a little bronze plaque by the door that listed 3 law firms and an architectural practice. He parked 2 blocks away out of a habit he was beginning to develop, and hadn't decided whether to trust. It was 6:54 in the morning. The sidewalks were mostly empty. A man in a suit was walking a small dog on the corner. A woman in scrubs was unlocking a coffee shop across the street. The city was still doing its morning warm-up, and nothing about the block looked like the kind of place where a man went to start the worst day of his life. Arya was in the lobby. She was in a gray blazer now, no hoodie, her hair pulled back in a tight, businesslike knot. She looked older than she had the night before, and smaller somehow, as if the office setting reduced her. She nodded when she saw him. She didn't smile. "You came," she said. "I said I would." "People say a lot of things." "Yeah, well, I'm not most people." She led him to the elevator. A thick-shouldered man in a black shirt was already inside, leaning against the back wall with his arms crossed. He gave Noah a look that was neither hostile nor friendly, just a slow up-and-down evaluation, the way you'd check a machine for dents before you rented it. "This is Ramirez," Arya said. "Mr. Bennett," Ramirez said. "Noah." "Noah," Ramirez nodded, Before we go upstairs, I'm going to need to pat you down, and I'm going to need to take your phone. You'll get it back when you leave. This isn't personal." "I don't care if it's personal." "Good attitude." Noah lifted his arms. Ramirez ran him down quickly, professionally, the way a good bouncer did it, and came up with nothing but Noah's wallet, his phone, and a small folding knife he'd forgotten was in his pocket. Ramirez put all three in a lockbox in a small duffel and zipped it shut. "Who are you?" Noah said. "Former DEA. 21 years. 2 years protection detail for Edward Vance, 4 months protection detail for his daughter. You want references? I've got them on me. I'll trust you when I trust you." "Fair," Ramirez said. "Works both ways." The elevator climbed to the 7th floor. The law firm's name was etched into the frosted glass on the doors: Provost, Kahn, and O'Leary. The waiting area had leather chairs and a pot of coffee on a side table that smelled freshly brewed. A receptionist glanced up, nodded at Aria, and went back to her monitor. They were taken down a hallway to a conference room with a long table and a wall of windows that overlooked a parking garage. 4 people were already inside: a woman in her 50s, sharp gray bob, charcoal suit. 2 men who looked like brothers, close-cropped hair, lean, alert, the way people stood when they'd spent years in uniforms. A woman in a cardigan with a laptop already open in front of her, cables running to 3 different boxes on the table.
"Miriam Prevost," the woman in the charcoal suit said, extending a hand. "Ms. Vance's attorney. Mr. Bennett, please sit." Noah sat. The chair was too comfortable. His back didn't know what to do with it. "Before we begin," Prevost said, "I want to confirm your understanding of the next several hours. You are here voluntarily. You are not a client of this firm. The instruments I'm about to show you are enforceable agreements that protect your interests, your son's interests, and your sister's interests. You may leave at any time. You may walk out of this office at any point and nothing that has been said will be held against you. Do you understand?" "I understand." "Do you consent to the conversation being recorded for the protection of all parties, on the understanding that the recording will be sealed and held only by this firm?" "Yeah." "Thank you." She opened a leather portfolio. "We're going to start with the trust." The trust document was 9 pages. Noah read every word of it. He wasn't a lawyer, and his eyes wanted to glaze, but he forced them not to. He'd signed things in his life without reading them. Mostly small things, lease renewals, insurance forms, and he wasn't going to do that today. Not when his son's name was on the top of page 2. Liam James Bennett, beneficiary. Diandra Marie Bennett, co-trustee. Miriam Elizabeth Prevost, co-trustee. Corpus of $400,000. To be disbursed according to terms laid out on pages 6 through 8. Educational expenses first, medical expenses. Second, guardianship support third. Irrevocable. Fully funded. A separate schedule attached showed a wire transfer from an account labeled only as A. Vance Trust, with a confirmation number from a bank Noah didn't recognize but Prevost assured him was clean. "The money is already in the trust?" Noah said. "As of 5:46 this morning? Yes." "Before I said yes?" "Before you said yes." He looked at Aria. She was sitting at the far end of the table, hands folded. She didn't look back at him. "Why?" he said. "Because if you said no, the trust would still exist," Prevost answered. "With your son as beneficiary, held independently of Ms. Vance. It would pay out on the 18th birthday with no conditions, that's why. Ms. Vance's instructions." "That's not—" He shook his head. "That's not how any of this works." "It's how this works today, Mr. Bennett." He read the document again. He signed page 9 in 2 places and initialed each of the preceding pages. Prevost countersigned. An associate stepped in, notarized it, stepped out. The whole thing took 11 minutes. "This is a copy of the executed document for your records," Prevost said, sliding a sealed envelope across the table. "Another copy will be mailed to your sister today. A third is filed with the bank. A fourth will be held in our vault. Nothing your sister or your son can do, and nothing anyone from Vance Corporation can do, will pull this money back into anyone else's control. You have my word. I would stake my license on it." "Have you ever staked your license on it?" "Once. Mr. Bennett, I was Edward Vance's attorney for 16 years. I am no longer a young woman, and I do not have a great many years left to damage my reputation in. If I were going to help this company's thieves, I would have done it already."
Noah looked at her. She looked back at him steadily. Okay, he said. The second document, she said. The second document was his own employment agreement, contingent. If, within 30 days, Arya Vance assumed the chair of Vance Corporation, Noah would be offered the position of Director of Facilities and Life Safety Systems at a salary that made him read the number twice. Full benefits from day one. Signing bonus to compensate for lost wages and reputational damage. A clause specifying that his prior termination would be formally expunged, not just in the company's internal records, but in the records of the building management firm that employed him, and in any reference query that came through any channel. A confidentiality agreement, bilateral. A non-disparagement clause that ran both ways, with financial penalties on Vance Corporation if it were violated. That's a lot of money, Noah said. It's market rate for the position, Prevost said, which is a position that has been vacant for 8 months because Mr. Keller terminated the previous director for refusing to falsify an OSHA filing. It's not a gift. It's a job. And if Arya doesn't get the chair, if Ms. Vance does not assume the chair within 30 days for any reason, the contract becomes inoperative. The trust for your son, however, remains in force, regardless of outcome. Regardless of outcome, Noah repeated. Regardless of outcome. Including if something happens to her. Including if something happens to her. Including if something happens to me. Prevost paused. Her eyes moved just once to Arya and back to Noah. Yes, Mr. Bennett, she said quietly. Including if something happens to you. He signed. He read everything else, and he signed. The morning crawled. It was nearly 9 when they moved to the next phase. The woman in the cardigan was Dr. Ellen Shaw, a signal specialist out of a private contracting firm Ramirez trusted. She had spent 10 years doing audio forensics for the federal government and had gone private when she'd gotten tired of the paperwork. She walked Noah through the devices with the patience of a kindergarten teacher. A pen with a directional microphone built into the clip, good for 30 feet. Operating in a frequency nobody in the corporate security world was likely to be scanning for. A phone with a modified case that contained a second microphone and a small transmitter, running on a carrier his phone normally didn't use. A button on the front of a dark blue windbreaker, unremarkable, which contained the third redundant mic. All three, recording locally to solid-state media that would survive even if the transmission was jammed. The transmission is the weak link, Shaw said. If he jams, we lose real-time monitoring, but the local recording keeps going. You don't need to worry about it. Just wear the jacket, keep the pen in your pocket, keep the phone on the table. Let them do their job. What if he checks me? He won't. He won't come in with a detector because the moment he does, he's admitting he thinks you have one. He can't afford to look paranoid to you. He has to look like the generous executive offering to clean up a misunderstanding. If he's paranoid, he loses. Plus, the devices are clean enough that a consumer-grade detector won't pick them up. Only a military sweep would find them, and he's not bringing one. Say he does. If he does, you pull the pen out and click it twice, like you're thinking, and drop it on the floor. The click disables the transmitter. By the time it hits the floor, it looks like a pen. The phone you just hand him, the jacket you shrug out of. You claim nothing. You say you don't know what he's talking about. You walk out. We still have local recordings on all three. They may or may not be admissible, but they'll exist. And if he doesn't let me walk out, Shaw glanced at Ramirez. That's my part, Ramirez said. We'll have a sight line on the meeting the entire time. 2 men inside the building in civilian dress at different tables. Me outside with a vehicle. 2 minutes, start to finish, from distress signal to extraction. What's the distress signal? Scratch the back of your neck twice. Easy, natural. If at any point you're scared, or he's got people coming, or you just want us in there, scratch twice. That's it. 2 minutes is a long time. 2 minutes is fast. It's also long enough that you should trust yourself to keep breathing for 120 seconds. You can do that. Noah nodded slowly. Where's the meeting going to be? He said. Arya spoke for the first time in an hour. We want him to pick. Whatever he picks, we'll adapt. You're going to contact him at 11. You'll use a burner phone. The number will already be burned to a prepaid account that can't be traced to you or us. You're going to send him a text. Short. I'll give you the wording. He'll respond or he won't. If he responds, he'll want to meet sooner rather than later. If he doesn't respond in 2 hours, we send a second message, slightly warmer, no later. And then you go home, Arya said. You go to your sister's, you see your son, you eat a real meal, because there's nothing else to do between the message going out and him picking a place. You don't sit in a hotel waiting. You don't sit in an office waiting. You go back to your life, or as much of it as you have right now, and you stay there, and you let him think you're alone. Noah didn't answer. He was looking at the pen on the table in front of him. It was a nice pen, heavier than he expected. He picked it up and turned it in his fingers. It felt like the kind of pen an accountant might carry. All right, he said. They wrote the text together. It took 40 minutes. They argued over 3 words. In the end, it said, Mr. Keller, this is Noah Bennett. I've been thinking. There's something I didn't tell your lawyer yesterday. I'd like to talk before I decide what to do with it. Just you and me, no lawyers. At 11:02, Noah pressed send. Then the morning stopped. They waited. Shaw had set up a laptop showing the encrypted chat client on a sandboxed account. The message was delivered. There was no read receipt. Keller had them turned off. Noah sat in the leather chair with his hands on the table and watched the wall clock move through 11:10, 11:15, 11:22. Prevost brought him a coffee he actually drank. Arya went to the window and looked out at the parking garage with her arms crossed. Ramirez paced the short wall. Nobody talked. The silence had a specific weight, the kind of waiting that wasn't productive, wasn't meditative, just tense. At 11:43, the laptop chimed. Mr. Bennett? Let's be adults about this. I am at Brindle House this evening, 7:30, the bar at the top floor. You come alone. You leave alone. I'm bringing one man for safety. You can check him yourself. No recordings. If you agree, say so. If you don't, we have nothing to discuss. Noah read it twice. He looked at Shaw. Brindle House, she said. Rooftop hotel bar. Hotel is a Vance Corporation client. Keller knows the manager. The top floor is open air. 12 tables, usually half full at 7:30 on a Thursday. Difficult audio environment, wind, ambient noise, glasses, but doable with what you're carrying. And his one man is going to be a professional. If it's who I think, it's a former military contractor named Daltrey. Keller has used him before for sensitive situations. He's ex-Army, 1st Battalion, clean record on paper, and he has never spoken publicly about anything he's done. He's not there to hurt you. He's there to watch you. But he's also there in case Keller decides he needs someone hurt. You sound like you know him. I know of him. Noah looked at Arya. It's your call, she said. If Brindle House is too much, we tell him no. Pick somewhere else. He'll push back. If I tell him no, he gets nervous. Maybe. And if he gets nervous, he cancels. Maybe. Or he pushes the meeting off and uses the time to plan. Then I'm going to Brindle House. You're sure? Arya, if we're doing this, we're doing it. I can't second guess every step or I'm going to walk off a roof by accident. She looked at him for a second. Then she nodded. They wrote the reply. Agreed. 7:30. Alone. No recordings. He sent it. Keller's response came in 40 seconds. A single word. Confirmed. All right, Ramirez said. That's our afternoon. Arya crossed the room and stopped in front of Noah. She had her hands in her blazer pockets. Go home, she said. Eat something. See your son. My son isn't home. Then see your sister. See your boy. Say nothing to them about this. Be a person. Come back here at 5:30. We'll dress you, wire you, drive you. You won't go alone. Even when you walk in that bar, you won't be alone. I know. Do you? She studied his face. Do you want to take a minute? Do you want to sit for a while and tell me you changed your mind? No? Because you can. Right now, even after all of this. You can. He thought about it. He let himself think about it. He let himself imagine walking out of this building, getting in the Civic, driving to Dee's, picking up his son, and driving somewhere. Anywhere. Some small town. Starting over with a new name. Being the guy at the hardware store for the next 40 years. He couldn't do it. Not because he was brave, because if he did, the woman across from him was going to die in about 19 days, and some private equity firm was going to eat 2,000 people's jobs for breakfast, and a man who had put his hand on a 24-year-old's neck was going to retire to a house in the Caymans with $250 million. And Noah Bennett would know that about himself every day for the rest of his life. The knowing was going to kill him faster than the meeting could. "I'm not changing my mind," he said. "Okay. Arya." "Yeah. If I—" He stopped. Started again. "If he does something, or he tries to, and it goes wrong, I need you to call my sister before you call the police. I need her to hear it from you." "I will." "She's going to hate you." "I know." "Tell her I didn't want Liam to know any of this. Tell her to say I died doing my job. Whatever job. Something with a ladder." "Noah, I'm serious. She has to tell him something he can carry." Her jaw moved. "I'll tell her whatever she needs to hear." "Okay." He stood up. He took the envelope of documents. He took the phone back from Ramirez. He didn't take the money. He'd decided without telling anyone that he still wasn't ready to. He'd take it tomorrow, if there was a tomorrow. He had a ludicrous, superstitious feeling that if he took it today, something bad would happen. It wasn't logic. It was just where his head was. He went downstairs. The city had warmed up in the hours he'd been inside. The sun was out. It was going to be a clear day. He walked to the Civic and drove to Dee's house on Perry Avenue, 22 minutes across town, and the whole time his hands on the wheel were completely steady, which scared him a little. A person should be shaking on a day like this. A person who wasn't shaking was a person who hadn't fully understood what he'd agreed to. Dee opened the door before he knocked. She had her phone in her hand. "Is that you?" she said. "It's me." "On the news. There's a story. There's a story about you. I've been trying to call." "I turned it off. I'm sorry." "The company put out a statement. They named you. They used your full name, Noah." "I know." "Are the cops coming?" "The cops aren't coming, Dee. Not for that." "Then what?" Then he looked past her, into the house. Liam was in the living room at the low table, drawing. 4 of Dee's kids were with him, all crowded around. Liam was showing them something on a piece of paper. He hadn't noticed his father yet. "Dee, I need an hour with him." "Noah, I need an hour. I'll tell you later. I'll tell you everything later. Tonight I have to do something that's—" He stopped. He looked at her face. She was scared, and she was angry, and she was not going to be put off. "Tonight I have to sit down with somebody. And the people I'm sitting down with, they've promised to protect Liam. There's a trust. It's in your name. It's for college and whatever he needs. It's already set up. You're the co-trustee. A lawyer will mail you the paperwork today. If anything happens to me, Noah. If anything happens to me, the money is there. The woman who set it up will call you first. Her name is Arya Vance." "Vance? That Vance?" "Yeah. Noah, what are you doing? I'm trying to fix this." "You can't fix this. You can't fix a billion-dollar company." "I'm not trying to fix the company. I'm trying to fix my name and my kid's name. That's all I'm trying to fix." She stared at him. Her eyes filled, and then she blinked it back, the way she'd always blinked it back since they were kids and their mother had gotten sick, and Dee had decided at 14 years old that she wasn't going to cry in front of anyone ever again. "Come in," she said. He went in. Liam looked up from his drawing, and his whole face opened. "Dad." "Hey, bud. I'm making you a thing." "Yeah? Let me see." Liam held up a piece of paper. It was a crayon picture of a man in blue coveralls standing on a ladder, fixing a light bulb that had a smiley face. Next to the man, a tiny figure was holding a toolbox. Underneath it said, in careful, uneven letters, "My dad works hardest." Noah looked at it for a long second. His throat closed. "Bud, that's the best picture anybody ever made of me. You can keep it." "You sure?" "Yeah, you have to put it up where everybody can see." "Okay." He sat down on the couch. Liam came and climbed up next to him, and the boy leaned into his side, and Noah put his arm around him, and he just sat there for a long time, while Dee's kids ran and shrieked around them, and a cartoon played on the TV with the sound turned low. He memorized the weight of his son against his ribs. He memorized the smell of his hair. He memorized the way the boy's hand rested on his forearm, small and warm, and a little sticky from something. He told himself quietly, inside himself, a thing he was not going to say out loud to anyone. If you die tonight, this was worth it. Not for Arya, not for the company, not for the deal. For this. so that Liam could sit on a couch with his father one more time when his father was still innocent of whatever he was about to become. They ate sandwiches Dee made. Liam showed him a worm he had found in the backyard in a plastic cup. Noah watched Liam release the worm back under a rock. Dee made coffee, and she and Noah sat on the back steps while the kids played, and he told her as much as he was willing to tell her, which was less than she wanted, and she didn't fight him on it, which was how he knew she believed him. At 4:30, he kissed the top of Liam's head and told him he'd see him tomorrow. "You promise?" Liam said. Noah didn't answer right away. "I'm going to do my best," he said. Liam looked at him. Liam, who was 7, who had not, up until that second, seen his father like this. "Dad?" the boy said. "Are you scared?" "A little. Yeah." "Are you scared of the work thing?" "Yeah, bud. A little." Liam thought about it. Then he opened his dresser drawer and took out the stuffed fox and handed it to his father. "Take socks." "Bud, I can't." "Dad, take socks. He helps me when I'm scared. He'll help you." Noah took the fox. He tucked it under his arm. He didn't trust himself to speak. "I'll give him back tomorrow," he said finally. "Okay." Dee walked him out to the Civic. She stood with her arms crossed in the driveway. "You come back here," she said. "I plan to." "I'm not asking for a plan. I'm telling you, you come back here." "Yeah." "Noah." "Yeah. I know this looks big to you. I know you think you're doing a big thing, but there's nothing bigger than that little boy inside. You remember that?" "I remember." "Good." He drove back across town with the stuffed fox on the passenger seat. He went home first. He put on the blue windbreaker that was in a bag waiting for him. He put the pen in the inside pocket. He put the phone in his hand. He looked at himself in the bathroom mirror, a 32-year-old man in a jacket he didn't own, preparing to do something he didn't understand. The man in the mirror did not look brave. He looked tired. He looked like a guy who was about to try. He drove back to Chester Avenue. Aria was waiting for him in the lobby. "You came back," she said. "I said I would." "People say a lot of things." "Yeah, I know." She smiled very small. "Come upstairs." They ran him through the protocol one more time. Shaw checked the devices. Ramirez walked him through the building layout for Brindle House, showed him photographs of the rooftop bar, the elevator lobby, the staff entrance, the fire stairs. He pointed out Daltrey in a surveillance photo so Noah would know the man's face when he saw it. Daltrey was 40-ish, sandy hair, pleasant expression. He looked like somebody's uncle. "He'll be on your left if Keller does it right," Ramirez said. "Angled so he can see the door and also your hands. Don't reach across the table. Don't put your hands in your pockets after you sit down. Keep them on the table or on your glass. If you need to get something out of your jacket, ask first and do it slow. Okay? And eat something before. A roll. Anything. Your blood sugar drops. Your voice goes weird, he notices. Okay." Shaw pressed the pen and the phone and the button into their spots. She tested them 3 times. She adjusted the pen in the pocket. She stepped back. "You're good," she said. Aria walked him to the elevator, just the two of them. "I keep thinking I should say something profound," she said. "Don't." "Good. Just tell me you're going to be listening." "I'm going to be listening, the whole time. So is Ellen. So is Ramirez. If you say the word peach, we pull you out, no questions asked. Peach. I picked it because nothing in that conversation is going to naturally lead you to the word peach. Don't worry about it. You're not going to need it. If I do need it, I'm going to feel stupid saying peach. Say peach anyway." "Okay." The elevator came. He stepped in. He held the door for a second. He looked at her. "Aria." "Yeah." "If I don't come back." "You're coming back." "If I don't." "You take care of that boy. You take care of my sister. You put my face on the news and you say what I did. You don't bury it. You make it count." She held his eyes. "I promise," she said. The doors closed. Brindle House sat at the top of a glass tower 14 blocks east, a boutique hotel that catered to the kind of money that didn't sleep on thread counts under 400. The bar on the top floor was called 11th and Sky, and it had wraparound views of the city and a $30 martini and a dress code. Noah walked in at 7:26. The maitre d' looked at his navy windbreaker and said nothing,
which told him the reservation under Keller's name had come with instructions. The maitre d' led him to a corner table near the west-facing windows. Keller was already there, alone at the table, with one glass of scotch in front of him and a second already poured, waiting. The sandy-haired man from the surveillance photo, Daltrey, was at a table 8 feet away, alone, with a soda water, positioned so he could see both Noah's back and the elevators. Noah clocked him and looked away. "Mr. Bennett," Keller said pleasantly, "thank you for coming, please." Noah sat. The scotch was in front of him. He didn't touch it. Keller was in a charcoal suit that fit him the way suits fit men who had had them made on a different continent. His silver hair was freshly cut. His nails were clean. He looked like a senator. He looked like the kind of man people wrote profiles about in airline magazines. He looked absolutely nothing like the man Noah had seen with his hand around a young woman's neck 34 hours ago. And that, Noah realized slowly, was the point. This was not the same man. This was a costume. "You haven't touched your drink," Keller said. "I don't drink on an empty stomach." "Very wise." Keller smiled. "You said there was something you didn't tell my lawyer." "Yeah." "What was it?" Noah looked at him. He felt the weight of the pen in his pocket. He felt the weight of the phone on the table between them, face down, innocuous. He felt the weight of the button on his jacket. He felt also the weight of a stuffed fox in the passenger seat of a Civic 3 blocks away, where Ramirez was parked, watching the building. He took a breath. "I saw your hand," he said. Keller didn't move. "My hand," he said. "On her neck, I saw it. I saw the angle of her shirt. I saw the way you turned around when I walked in. I'm a maintenance guy, Mr. Keller. I don't know a lot of things, but I know how a shirt tears when somebody rips it, and I know how a shirt tears when somebody is trying to get out of it on their own. And what I saw in that office yesterday morning was not what your lawyer told me it was." "And you didn't tell Mr. Holbrook this?" "I told him. He didn't want to hear it." "Then what are you telling me now that you didn't tell him?" Noah leaned forward a little. "I'm telling you," he said quietly, "that I know it wasn't a maintenance worker who did that. I'm telling you it was you, and I'm telling you that I'm about to walk out of this bar, and in about 2 hours I'm going to sit down with a reporter I know, and I'm going to tell her everything I saw, and I don't care if she believes me, because somebody will, and it'll start, and it won't stop." Keller sat very still. "You came here to threaten me. I came here to give you a chance to make me a different offer. Your lawyer offered me 3 months. I want $2 million, cash, by Monday. And I want your word on the record, in writing, that I was wrong about what I saw." "In writing?" "In writing." Keller laughed quietly. It was a good laugh, practiced. "Mr. Bennett, I know what game you're playing. I admire it a little. A working-class man with nothing to lose, holding out for the big number. It's very American." "Is it working?" "That depends." Keller picked up his scotch, sipped, set it down. "Tell me what you think you saw." "I told you." "Tell me again, with detail." Noah took a breath. "I saw you with Aria Vance pushed against the desk. I saw your left hand on her neck. I saw her shirt torn at the side seam, which is the wrong seam to tear in anything consensual. I saw her make eye contact with me in a way a woman only makes eye contact with a stranger when she is hoping that stranger will save her. And I saw you, when you realized I was there, go from the face of a man doing something ugly to the face of a man trying to sell something inside of a second. That's a skill, Mr. Keller. That's a practiced skill. That's not the face of a surprised Good Samaritan." Keller watched him. His face didn't change. "You're a perceptive man," Keller said. "I'm a tired man." "And what do you think was happening in that office?" "I think you were going to hurt her enough to make the assault look real. I think you were going to blame me, and I think you were going to use the incident to knock her out of some kind of seat she was about to take. I don't know the corporate side. I just know what I saw in the room." A long pause. Then, very softly, Keller said, "What makes you think I was the one who set it up?" Noah's breath stopped, just for a second. "Because," he said, "I don't see you as a man who does other people's work." Keller smiled. It was the first real smile Noah had seen from him. It wasn't warm. "Mr. Bennett," Keller said, "I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to listen carefully, because I'm only going to say it once. And when I'm done, I'm going to write you a check, and you're going to take it, and we are going to shake hands, and you're going to leave this city by Sunday, and the two of us will never think of each other again." "I'm listening."
Arya Vance, Keller said, is a 24-year-old girl who was handed a company she is not capable of running by a father who loved her more than he understood her. Her father was a friend of mine for 3 decades. He was, in his final years, not a well man. He made decisions. The company, the thousands of employees who depend on it, the shareholders, the city. None of them can afford those decisions. Yesterday morning was not what you think it was. "Tell me what it was then." "It was," Keller said, "a correction, a necessary correction. The transition of control from a child who would have ruined the company to the men who built it." "You mean you?" "I mean the board. I mean the people who have devoted their lives to Vance Corporation." "You mean you?" Keller exhaled through his nose. "Yes, including me. Of course, including me. I am not ashamed of that. I have earned it. 28 years of my life. And the shirt and the neck, regrettable." The word came out flat. "Unfortunate. Not my preference." She would not agree to the terms that were offered to her privately. She was asked 3 times over the course of the last 10 days to accept a very generous package and step aside. She refused. There are other methods. Most of them take months. We don't have months. The will becomes public in 19 days, so we— He spread his hands. Expedited. I had drawn the short straw, so to speak. The air in Noah's chest felt thin. "You drew the short straw," he said. "Yes. To stage an assault on a 24-year-old woman. To stage an intervention that would make her temporarily unfit to assume a role she is, in my judgment, and the judgment of 2 members of the board, not fit for in any case. There is a difference, Mr. Bennett." "There isn't. You're sentimental, that's all right. You're allowed to be sentimental. You're not in a position where sentiment costs 2,000 jobs." "You were going to kill her." Keller's eyes flickered. "I was not." "You were going to have her committed. You just said so." "I was going to have her evaluated, by doctors, properly." "You were going to have her committed. And then what? She doesn't come out. She has a breakdown in the facility. She takes too many pills. Something happens." Nothing was going to happen. Something was going to happen. Something is going to happen. I don't even know her, and I know something is going to happen. Keller's jaw moved. "Mr. Bennett, if you're recording this—" "I'm not recording this." "Then I'd suggest you consider how any of it sounds in a courtroom. It sounds like a man making an argument. It doesn't sound like a confession." "I'm not recording." "Would you consent to a search?" Noah didn't move. "You said you'd come alone," he said. "You said no recordings." I agreed. "Are you saying you came here expecting to ignore your own terms?" Keller watched him for a long second. Then he smiled, very slightly, and he settled back in his chair. "No," Keller said. "I'm saying I'm a careful man, and I'm saying that I'm going to offer you $1.5 million, not 2, because 2 is vulgar and 1.5 is precise. I'm going to have a draft by Monday morning. You sign a statement saying what you saw was consistent with your initial confusion and that on reflection you don't remember it as clearly as you thought. You keep your name. Your son is safe. You're taken care of." "My son." "I mentioned him because fathers respond to mentions of their sons, Mr. Bennett. It was a figure of speech. Don't hear more in it than is there." "You shouldn't have mentioned him." "Don't be dramatic. Say it plain. Say what you mean." Keller's eyes locked on his. "I mean," Keller said softly, "that there are paths forward from this moment that are very good for you, and paths forward that are very bad. I mean that you are a maintenance worker with a child in the 2nd grade who attends a public school 3 blocks from your apartment. I mean that you have one sister with 3 children of her own on Perry Avenue, and that you will at some point go home and your son will be with you. And I mean that I am a man who does not say any of that as a threat, because threats are crude, but I am a man who wishes you to understand what your own choices look like from the outside." Noah's left hand curled slowly into a fist on the table. He forced it flat. "Peach," he said quietly, and Keller blinked at him, and in Noah's right ear, 2 blocks away, in a sedan with blackout windows, Ramirez said into a radio, "We have it. Move now." "I don't understand," Keller said. "I know you don't," Noah said. "What are you—" "Mr. Keller, You just told a maintenance worker on the record that you staged an assault to unseat the chair of a public company, and then you threatened his son. You did that. I didn't. I just sat here. I just let you. Keller's face changed. It did the opposite thing it had done the morning before. It went from the polished executive to the red, hateful creature underneath, and it did it in the space of one breath. Stand up, Keller said. No. Stand up, or Daltrey will... Daltrey just got up and walked toward the elevator, Noah said, without turning around, because he could see the reflection in the glass. I think he's leaving. He probably figured out what's happening before you did. Keller looked past Noah, and his face went pale. Two men in suits were coming through the west entrance of the bar. One Noah recognized. He was one of the ex-federal agents from the morning meeting. The other he didn't. They moved fast and clean. Daltrey, at the elevator, had his hands half up, like a man who had decided in the last 4 seconds that he was not paid enough for this. Keller reached for Noah, and in the motion he knocked his own scotch off the table, and the glass shattered on the tile, and the whole bar turned, and Noah rolled backward out of the chair and came up on his feet against the window, and Keller was on him. The older man was stronger than he looked. His hand got hold of Noah's jacket. For one crazy, sliding second, Noah thought, he's going to throw me through the window, which was ridiculous because the window was glass 3/4 of an inch thick. Then Keller's hand went into Noah's pocket, grabbing, tearing, pulling out the pen, flinging it. The pen skittered across the floor. You son of a... The ex-agent hit Keller at a full sprint. They went down together, and Noah's back slid down the window, and the world got suddenly quiet, the way it does in moments when too much is happening. Someone was screaming. Someone had called the police. A woman at a nearby table was filming on her phone, which meant the video would be everywhere within 20 minutes, which meant Aria Vance had just won, because a man trying to destroy a witness on camera in a public bar was no longer a story anyone could bury. Noah stayed against the window. He was breathing. The phone on the table was still recording, face down, its little red light invisible. The button on his jacket was still recording. The pen on the floor 12 feet away was still recording. Somewhere far below, down on the street, Ramirez's voice was in his earpiece, low and steady. You did it, Noah. You did it. Don't move. We're coming up. Noah looked down at his own hands. They were shaking, finally. That was good. That meant he was still a person. He slid all the way down to sit on the floor, his back against the glass of 11th and Sky, with the city spread out and blinking behind him, and he thought, absurdly, that he had promised his son he would bring the stuffed fox back tomorrow, and that he was going to keep that promise. For the first time all day, he closed his eyes. He opened them to a paramedic squatting in front of him, a young woman with a buzz cut and a penlight, asking him his name. Noah said his name. She asked him the date. He said the date. She asked him what city he was in, and for a second he almost laughed because it seemed like the wrong question after everything. He said the city. She nodded, satisfied, and told him he was going to be fine. The bar was full of police now. Red and blue lights pulsed through the windows from the street 14 stories below, a color Noah could see without looking, just from the way it washed the ceiling. 2 officers were putting Walter Keller into a chair with his hands cuffed behind his back, and the older man was not struggling anymore. He had gone very still and very gray. His silver hair was disheveled. A small cut had opened on his cheekbone from where the ex-agent had brought him down, and a thread of blood ran into the collar of his charcoal shirt. He was looking at nothing. His eyes were doing that specific thing eyes did. When a person had just understood, finally, that there wasn't going to be a version of the rest of his life that resembled the one he'd been expecting. Daltrey, the sandy-haired man, was already gone. He had walked into the elevator when the second ex-agent came up, and he had walked out onto the street and vanished, the way men of his profession were trained to vanish. Nobody had stopped him. He wasn't the story. He wasn't even a witness. He was just a man who had been paid to sit at a table. Ramirez pushed through the crowd and crouched next to Noah. He didn't touch him. He just got down to his eye level. Hey, Ramirez said. Hey, you with me? Yeah. You hurt? No. He didn't really hit me. He just grabbed the jacket. I saw. You did good. You did real good. We got all of it. All 3 recordings. Everything he said. The pen. The pen's on the floor. It's still running. We'll pick it up when the officers let us.
The phone? Still running. Table. Face down. Button? Button 2. Jacket's fine. Nothing got cut. Okay. Noah. Yeah. It's over. It's done. He said it out loud. He said her name. He said your son. He said it all. It's done. Noah nodded. He wasn't processing. He knew he wasn't processing. His body was doing a thing where everything it had held back for the last 36 hours was trying to come out at once, through his hands mostly, which had started to shake now in a way that wasn't going to stop for a while. He put them on his knees to steady them, and he kept them there.
The paramedic was still in front of him, doing her things. Blood pressure cuff on his arm, pulse on his wrist. She was making small, competent noises. Somebody behind him had swept up the shattered Scotch glass. Somebody else was talking into a phone in a low, urgent voice that Noah recognized after a second as Area Vance. Yes, confirmed. I'm on site. Yes. He's sitting down. He's talking. No, they're taking Keller now. Yes. Miriam already has the file ready. Release it. Release it now. All 3 channels. Yes, all of them. Noah turned his head. Arya was standing by the bar, still in the gray blazer, a hand pressed to one ear because the other held the phone. She was pale. Her mouth was moving fast and her eyes were on Noah. Only on Noah. The whole time she was giving instructions. She was standing very straight. She was not crying. Her hand on the side of her head was shaking the smallest amount. She saw him looking at her and she held up one finger. Wait, I'm coming. Noah nodded. She finished the call. She walked over. She crouched the way Ramirez had crouched, a little awkwardly, in her blazer and narrow pants, and she put one hand very lightly on his forearm, just the fingertips, as if she wasn't sure she had permission. He didn't pull away. Are you okay? She said quietly. I don't know yet. That's a good answer. My hands won't stop. They will. I know, but right now they won't. You're all right. I'm all right. Noah. Yeah. Thank you. He looked at her. Up close, in the colored light of the police strobes and the white lights of the bar, her eyes were red. She had been crying at some point in the last hour, and she had fixed it, but she had been crying. He could see the faint smudge she hadn't gotten to at the corner of her left eye. Don't, he said. Don't what? Don't thank me yet. Noah. He said my son. I know. He said my son and Perry Avenue and I want somebody at my sister's house right now. I want somebody there, Arya. Before we talk about anything else, I want somebody there tonight. There are already 3 men parked on Perry Avenue, 2 blocks in each direction, as of 18 minutes ago. Ramirez called in the team as soon as the meeting started. They've been in position the whole time. Your sister doesn't know, your son doesn't know, but they are there. They'll stay there for the next week. Then we can talk about whether you want more or less. Noah closed his eyes for a second. Okay, he said. Okay? Okay. Do you want to call her? She'll be watching the news in 20 minutes. Somebody is already filming. Then call her before that. Yeah. Ramirez was already handing him a phone. Not his own phone, a fresh one, prepaid, unused. Noah looked at him. Yours is evidence for the next 8 hours, Ramirez said. Use this. Call your sister. Noah dialed. He got the number wrong twice. His fingers weren't cooperating. On the 3rd try, the phone rang. Dee picked up on the 2nd ring and her voice was tight. Hello? It's me. Noah? What number? It's me. I'm okay. She made a sound, not a word, just a sound that came out of her chest and hit the phone and went into his ear. I'm okay, Dee. I'm okay. I'm at this place. The place I told you about. It went okay. The people I was meeting with, they're with the police now. I'm going to be home late, but I'm coming home. I'm coming to you. I'm going to get Liam. Oh my... Dee, listen. There might be some news on the news tonight with my name on it. I need you to turn the TV off. Don't let Liam see it. Okay? He doesn't need to see it. Okay. Okay, Noah? Yeah. Noah. I'm here. Don't you ever in my life. I know. She was crying now, openly. Not the way she cried, but the way people cried in their cars. He let her. He held the phone. Across the bar, a uniformed officer was standing in front of Walter Keller, reading him his rights in a voice flat enough to carry. Noah could hear only pieces of the words. The right to remain silent, can and will be used, right to an attorney. The words were so old they didn't mean anything anymore, and they meant everything anyway. "I'm coming home," Noah said to his sister. "I'll be there by midnight, probably later. Tell him I said goodnight if he wakes up. Tell him I'm bringing socks back." "Socks?" "He'll know." "Okay. I love you, Dee. Don't you dare hang up on me." "I'm not hanging up. I'm saying I love you. Now I'm hanging up." "Noah." "Good night." He ended the call. He handed the phone back to Ramirez. He stared at the floor. Arya was still crouching in front of him. She hadn't moved. "I have to go down to the hotel lobby," she said softly. "I have to do a thing." "What thing?" "I have to stand in front of the cameras. Downstairs. The press is already there. The release went out 11 minutes ago." "Already?" "The package was drafted 2 weeks ago. We only had to change one paragraph. Miriam sent it the moment Ramirez confirmed we had the confession on tape. It went to the board, the SEC, 4 newspapers, 2 networks, a podcast, and a handful of reporters I know personally. By 8 a.m., it will be every feed on the internet." Noah looked up at her slowly. 2 weeks? "Yes. You had it drafted 2 weeks ago. I've had a plan for 11 days, Noah. I told you. I had a dead man's switch. This was the switch. And if I had said no last night, then the package would have gone out tomorrow anyway, from my attorney, without the confession. It would have been weaker. It might have failed. I might have been in a facility by Monday, but it would have gone out. I wasn't going to go quietly either way. I just had a much better chance with you than without you." He stared at her. A part of him wanted to be angry. A part of him understood, suddenly and completely, what it was to be a young woman with no friends and a murdered father, and 19 days and a loaded gun pointed at everything she loved. That part of him didn't want to be angry at all. "You should go down there," he said. "I know. I'll be fine. Go. Will you come with me?" "What?" "Will you come downstairs with me? Not to speak, just to stand. Arya, they're going to ask who helped me. They're going to ask who stood with me. I'm not saying you owe me that. I'm saying, if you can, I would like it if the first picture the country sees of this story has both of us in it, not behind me, next to me." He looked at her. He thought about Liam. He thought about the crayon picture. "My dad works hardest." He thought about how that picture was going to look on the refrigerator next to a photograph of his face on cable news with the word innocent running in a crawl underneath it. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, I'll come. Thank you. I still have a mic on my jacket." It's fine, leave it. Shaw will get it later." She stood, and she offered him a hand, and after a second he took it, and she pulled him up, and he was steadier on his feet than he had expected to be. The paramedic handed him a bottle of water. He drank it in one pull. He handed her the empty bottle back, and she nodded at him like he'd passed some kind of test. He and Arya walked to the elevator. 2 of her security detail fell in behind them. One of them, the one she'd brought in as backup that morning, a tall, bald man named Hendricks, pressed the button and stood with his shoulder against the frame so the doors wouldn't close until they wanted. "Ramirez," Arya said. "Yeah, keep a man up here until Keller's gone. And the other guy, the bartender. Everybody who worked tonight, statements, names, IDs, anything they saw, anything they heard. I want all of it." "Got it." "And Ellen." "Yeah. I want the recordings cloned to 3 separate locations before midnight. You know where." "Already in progress." "Thanks." The elevator opened. They got in. The doors closed. Noah leaned his head against the wall and looked at the lighted numbers descending. 14, 13, 12. Arya stood next to him, not touching him. She was looking at the numbers too. "Walter Keller has been my ghost for a year," she said to the elevator wall. "I used to dream about him. I used to dream about being in the office with him. Do you ever dream about the same thing every night?" "Yeah." "Is it a bad one?" "Sometimes." Mine was him, just him, in a chair across a desk, not doing anything, just sitting there, every night for 8 months. Is it going to stop now? I don't know. 7, 6, 5. I didn't know.
she said quietly, if I was going to survive this. Until about 20 minutes ago, I did not know. I thought the most likely outcome was that he'd kill you tonight and me tomorrow. I hedged for that. I have letters. There are letters for people. I don't know if I'm going to be able to throw those letters out. Don't throw them out. No? Keep them, somewhere quiet. I got one for my kid, too. I wrote it this afternoon before I came back to you. What does it say? Says I did what I thought was right. Says I love him. Says I'm sorry if this was the wrong thing. Says he should listen to Aunt Dee about everything. Says to brush his teeth. Brush his teeth? He doesn't brush his teeth. It's a problem. She laughed, once, a dry, broken laugh, and for a second she put her hand against her face, and he saw how hard she was holding it together. He didn't look at her. He gave her the dignity of not looking. The elevator kept descending. 3, 2, 1. Ready? He said. No, she said. Me either. The doors opened into the hotel lobby. The lobby was white marble and pale gold light and very, very full of people. At first Noah thought there were 100. Then his eyes adjusted and he realized there were closer to 30, but most of them were press, and press took up more air than other people. 3 network crews had already set up cameras, a row of photographers, reporters with microphones, uniformed officers along the walls keeping them off the elevator landing. Somewhere outside, the street was full of vehicles and rotating lights. A man in a dark suit, the hotel's director, stood at the front of the crowd with a strained smile. A knot of plainclothes detectives near the revolving doors. 2 people from the mayor's office, looking like they hadn't been sure whether to show up. And near the front, to one side, standing with her hands folded in front of her, was Miriam Prevost. She gave Noah a small professional nod. Arya walked out of the elevator. Noah walked 3 steps behind her, then caught up and walked beside her, on her right, a half step back. The cameras began to flash. Voices shouted questions. Miss Vance! Miss Vance! Arya! Is it true? Is it true? A woman with a microphone pushed forward. A security aide put a hand up to keep a space clear. Arya did not stop walking. She walked to a small raised platform that had been rolled out in front of the reception desk, where someone, in the last 20 minutes, had placed a portable podium. A single microphone was mounted on it. Someone had taped a piece of cardboard over the hotel's name on the front of the podium because nobody wanted this in the footage. Arya stopped at the podium. Noah stopped a step behind her and to the side, exactly where she'd asked. He held his hands behind his back at first, then, realizing he looked like a federal agent in a stock photo, put them in front of him, clasped, which looked almost as bad. He settled on one hand in his pocket, the other at his side. He kept his face neutral. His legs were still not completely his own, and he kept his weight spread across both feet very evenly so he would not, under any circumstance, sway. The crowd quieted. Arya looked up. She didn't introduce herself. She didn't thank anyone for coming. She didn't read from a sheet of paper. "My name is Arya Vance," she said, clearly, into the microphone. "My father was Edward Vance, the founder and chairman of Vance Corporation, who died 14 months ago. In his will, he named me as his successor. That will was kept sealed at his instruction until tonight. Tonight, it becomes public." The camera's whirred. The flashes kept going. She didn't flinch. "Yesterday morning, the chief operating officer of Vance Corporation, Walter Keller, assaulted me in his office on the 48th floor of Meridian Tower. His intent was to stage a sexual assault that would implicate an innocent maintenance worker employed by the building, Mr. Noah Bennett, standing beside me tonight." Every lens swung over to Noah, every flashbulb. He held very, very still. "Mr. Keller's goal was to generate a scandal that would remove me from any claim to the company's leadership. He had, in partnership with at least 2 members of the current board of directors, whose names will be released to investigators tonight, arranged the sale of Vance Corporation to a private equity group in a transaction that would have enriched them personally by approximately $250 million each. The sale was contingent upon me being declared unfit to assume control. The assault was arranged for that purpose." A reporter tried to interrupt. She raised her voice cleanly over him. "Mr. Bennett, who had nothing to do with any of this, who was simply doing his job, was fired by my company yesterday afternoon. He was named publicly as the perpetrator of a crime that never happened.
His face was posted in public forums. His reputation was destroyed in a matter of hours. He has a 7-year-old son. He lost his employment, his public standing, and almost every financial resource available to him in the course of one day, because he had the integrity to open a door when a woman screamed on the other side of it, and he refused to sign a document that would have said he had not. Somebody in the crowd made a sound, a small, audible exhale. Noah realized distantly that it had been one of the reporters. Tonight, Arya continued, at my request, Mr. Bennett agreed to meet with Walter Keller in a public location while wearing equipment that recorded their conversation. In that conversation, which has already been provided in full to federal investigators, the SEC, and 4 news organizations, Mr. Keller confessed to the assault on me, the framing of Mr. Bennett, and the broader scheme to seize control of Vance Corporation. He was arrested approximately 45 minutes ago. He is currently in custody. The 2 members of the board involved in the conspiracy will be named by name within the hour, and I expect their arrests by the end of the night. The flashes were a constant now, a steady strobing that made the edges of the lobby shimmer. I'm going to take questions in a moment, Arya said, but before I do, I want to say 3 things clearly and on the record. She paused. She looked at the cameras. Her voice, which had been steady, softened only slightly, which somehow made it carry further. First, Noah Bennett did not touch me yesterday. Noah Bennett did not assault me, approach me, intimidate me, or make any gesture toward me that was not a gesture of protection. Noah Bennett was the only person on that floor yesterday morning who tried to help me. He was punished for it by a corrupt system that then punished me for being in it. I am telling the entire country tonight that every single word spoken, written, posted, shared, or implied against Mr. Bennett in the last 36 hours was false. And that responsibility for those words lies with the men who wrote them, most of them employed by Walter Keller. Mr. Bennett is innocent. I am asking the press that covered this story yesterday to correct it tonight, by name, on the record, with the same prominence it was originally given. I will be watching. Noah's eyes stung. He didn't move. Second, I am formally assuming my role as chair of Vance Corporation tonight. The existing board is dissolved, effective immediately, under emergency provisions of the corporate bylaws that my attorneys have filed in the last 20 minutes. A new interim board of directors consisting of individuals identified and vetted over the course of the past year will be seated by the end of the week. An outside firm will conduct a full audit of every decision Walter Keller has made since the death of my father. Any employee who cooperated with the conspiracy will be terminated and prosecuted. Any employee who was silent out of fear will be offered amnesty and a place in the rebuilt company. I intend to lead a company my father would recognize again. I intend to lead it well, or not at all. A pause. Third, she said, I'm not going to take any questions about what Walter Keller did to me physically in that office yesterday. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not ever, unless I choose to, on my own terms. What was done was done. It will be investigated. He will be charged. I am not a victim available for consumption. I am the new chair of this company, and every camera in this room will treat me as such, or your credential for any further comment from this office will be revoked. I hope that's clear. She paused once more. She looked at Noah. And now, she said, I'll take your questions. Not Mr. Bennett, me. He has a son waiting for him across town, and he is leaving this building as soon as I finish this sentence. She glanced to the side. Hendricks, the tall security aide, stepped smoothly to Noah's elbow. Go home, Arya said under her breath without looking at him. Hendricks will drive you. I'll call you tomorrow, please. Noah looked at her. She was already back at the microphone, fielding the first shouted question, her face composed, her hands flat on the sides of the podium to keep them from shaking. He stepped down off of the platform. Hendricks was already moving. They crossed the lobby. Every camera wanted his face, but Arya had them locked in, and her voice on the mic cut through, sharp, pulling their attention back. He walked out through the side door into an alley where a black SUV was waiting with the engine running. He got in. The door closed. The noise cut off. Noah put his head back against the leather headrest and closed his eyes. Hendricks pulled out of the alley. They drove 4 blocks before he spoke. Perry Avenue, Hendricks said. Perry Avenue. Got it. They drove. The streetlights stuttered by. The city was doing its nighttime thing, full of people who had no idea what had just happened and who would, in the morning, hear it on their commute. Noah watched the building slide past the tinted window. He thought about the 48th floor of Meridian Tower and the hallway and the carpet and the woman's face and the pen with the directional mic now in an evidence bag in a law firm's vault. He thought about the stuffed fox on the passenger seat of a Civic parked in front of a law office he wasn't going back to tonight. He thought about the crayon picture and the words, "My dad works hardest," and the way his son had handed him that fox. He must have dozed for a few seconds, because when he opened his eyes, they were turning onto Perry Avenue. "You okay?" Hendricks said. "Yeah? You want me to wait?" "No. There's a Civic at Prevost and Con. Get somebody to drive it to my apartment tonight or tomorrow morning. Keys are—" He patted his pocket. "Keys are on me. I'll give them to you. I'll take care of it." He handed over the keys. The SUV pulled up at the curb in front of Dee's house. Every light in the house was on. He got out. He stood on the sidewalk for a second and just looked at the house. There was a wreath on the door that Dee had put up in November and never taken down. There was a crack in the concrete walkway that he had promised to fix 2 summers ago and never had. There was a tricycle on its side in the yard. It was a real house. It had always been a real house. He had spent 32 years not noticing how real every ordinary thing was. He walked up the walk. Before he could knock, the door flew open, and Dee was standing there in her bathrobe, hair up in a messy bun, face puffy and red. She didn't speak. She grabbed him. She hugged him so hard he felt her ribs press into his through the windbreaker. She hit him in the back with one fist, twice, without any real strength in it, and then she held him. "Dee, shut up. I'm here." I said, "Shut up." He stood there in his sister's hug on her front porch. A car drove past. A dog barked somewhere. He closed his eyes for a long time. She finally let him go and wiped her face on her sleeve and stood back and looked at him. "You look like hell." "Yeah. I saw the press conference." "Okay. They're saying your name. Everywhere. They're apologizing. They're running corrections." "Okay. You should see it." "I will. Tomorrow. There's a reporter outside at the corner, 2 of them." "Yeah, I saw when we pulled up. They didn't follow us. They tried to come to the door 20 minutes ago. The guys in the black car told them to go away. So there's a car, with guys, in front of my house." "I know. I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Just come inside." She pulled him in. The house smelled like pasta sauce and laundry detergent. Her husband, Mike, was in the kitchen, still in his work clothes, holding a glass of ice water with both hands like it was a weapon he hadn't decided to use. He looked at Noah for a long second, and his jaw moved, and then he set the glass down and came over and hugged him too. "You scared us," Mike said. "I know. I'm sorry." "You don't have to." "Mike, I know. I'm sorry." "Noah, if you ever—" "Mike?" "Yeah. I'm gonna go see my kid. He's asleep. Top bunk. I changed his sheets because he had an accident earlier. Don't say anything about it. He was embarrassed." "I won't." Dee walked him down the hallway. The floorboards creaked. The hallway smelled like crayons. A kid's backpack was open on the floor with papers spilling out of it. A cat wandered across his path and disappeared into the bathroom. At the door of the back bedroom, Dee stopped. "You want me to—" "I'll sit with him." "Okay. Thank you, Dee." "Shut up." She went back down the hall. He opened the door. The room was dark except for a nightlight shaped like a mushroom, casting a small warm circle on the ceiling. 4 bunks. Dee's 2 oldest in one set of bunks on the left, breathing evenly. The youngest in a crib by the wall. And on the right, on the top bunk, under a thin blanket, curled on his side with one hand tucked under his chin, was Liam. Noah stood in the doorway for a minute and just watched him sleep. He walked over. He set the stuffed fox on the pillow next to Liam's head very gently, and he tucked it under the edge of the blanket so it wouldn't fall. He brushed the boy's hair back from his forehead with his thumb. His son stirred and made a small, questioning sound, and opened his eyes halfway in the dark. "Dad?" "It's me, Bud. I'm home." "You came back." "I came back." "Did you bring socks?" "I brought socks." "Where is he?" "Right here, right by your pillow." Liam's hand felt for the fox. His fingers closed on it. He pulled it against his chest. His eyes were closing again.
Dad? Yeah. Was the thing okay? The thing was okay, bud. Did socks help? Socks helped. Good. His eyes closed. His breathing deepened.
Noah sat down on the floor next to the bunk bed with his back against the wall. He did not want to leave the room. He did not want to leave the small, warm circle on the ceiling, or the sound of his son breathing, or the fact that it was over, that it was actually over, that whatever else happened tomorrow and the day after and the day after that, the man who had said Perry Avenue across a table in a rooftop bar was sitting in a holding cell under fluorescent lights right now, and he was not coming out, and he was not going to become anything except somebody's cautionary tale. Noah pulled his knees up. He rested his arms on them. He put his forehead down on his arms. And for the first time in 36 hours, in the dark, in a room full of sleeping children, he let himself cry. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was a quiet, shuddering thing that came up out of his chest in waves, and he let it come, because there was nobody in the room awake to hear it, and because he had held it off for a long time. He cried because his son was alive and safe in a bunk 3 feet from him. He cried because he had almost not come home. He cried because a 24-year-old girl had stood at a microphone in a hotel lobby and said his name in front of the whole country in a voice that did not waver. He cried because of the water stain on his bedroom ceiling, and because of his father, who had been dead for 11 years, and because of his mother, who had been dead for 18, and because of Edward Vance, who he had never met, and who had left a daughter behind who was tougher than anyone had any right to be. He cried because he had been a maintenance man, and he was still, technically, a maintenance man, and somehow in 36 hours he had become a different person inside the same body. And he cried because he didn't know, yet, who that person was. He cried for about 4 minutes. Then he stopped. He wiped his face on the sleeve of the windbreaker, which still had a microphone button in it that was almost certainly no longer recording, but which he had not yet removed because nobody had asked him to. He sat there for another 10 minutes, with his back against the wall, just listening to his son breathe. Then he stood up quietly, and he went to the door. In the hallway, he nearly walked into his sister. She was leaning against the wall with her arms crossed. Her eyes were red. She didn't say anything. She just looked at him. "I didn't wake him up," he said. "I know. I'm going to sleep on the couch." "You're going to sleep on the pullout in the basement where there's a door because reporters are going to start knocking in the morning, and I'm going to tell them Jesse and Ruth and little Mike are the only kids in the house, which they might not believe, and I don't want them to know you're here." "Okay. Don't turn on your phone until morning. Let Miriam handle the noise." "Okay. There are pajamas in the dryer that'll fit you." "Okay." She started to walk past him. She stopped. She put her hand flat on his chest. She looked up at him. "Noah." "Yeah." "You did a thing." "Yeah." "I don't know yet if it was the right thing." "Me either." "But you did it." "Yeah." "I'm proud of you. Shut up." "I didn't say anything." "You were going to." She walked past him down the hall. Noah stood for a second in the hallway with his hand against the wall. Somewhere deep in the house, the dishwasher was running. A child turned over in a bed and the mattress creaked. The cat reappeared and rubbed against his ankle and moved on. He went down the stairs to the basement. He found the pajamas. He brushed his teeth with the new toothbrush his sister had set out on the counter. He lay down on the pull-out bed, and the springs complained, and he stared at the ceiling tiles, which were the kind with little black holes in them, and he thought about the water stain above his own bed, shaped like a horse or a hand, and how he would look at it again tomorrow, and how, he supposed, he would keep living under it, because that was what a person did. He should not have been able to sleep. By any reasonable measure, he should have been up all night with his phone in his hand, watching his own face get played on 1,000 screens, reading corrections, watching his old company's statements get pulled one by one. He had so much adrenaline in him, he could feel it in his jaw. He had a man's confession in his pocket and a girl's gratitude on his name and a son 3 rooms away and a sister who loved him and a future of some kind that he could not yet picture. Instead, he fell asleep. He fell asleep fast, the way a person falls asleep when they have been carrying something heavier than they knew for longer than they thought. He fell asleep with his mouth slightly open, one arm flung over the side of the bed, one hand curled like a child's. He slept for 11 hours without moving, and somewhere up above him, in the early hours of the morning, the first edition of the story went out on every feed on every network in the country. Walter Keller's mugshot in one corner, his own name in a headline, a still from the press conference where Aria Vance stood at a podium and named him clearly for who he was. Man wrongly accused in Vance Corp. Scandal cleared. CEO arrested for assault, fraud. The headline moved across the country as the sun moved. By the time Noah Bennett finally opened his eyes, in a basement in his sister's house, the country was already on his side. He didn't know that yet. He just rolled over and he saw the light from the small basement window, and for a second he couldn't remember where he was. Then he heard, from upstairs, the sound of small feet, and he heard his son call out his name, the kind of call a kid makes first thing in the morning, before he has remembered any of the complications of being awake. "Dad?" Noah smiled. He pushed himself up on one elbow. "I'm coming, bud," he called back, and he swung his legs over the edge of the pull-out bed and he went up the stairs to his son. He came up into a kitchen that smelled like burnt toast and new coffee. Liam was at the counter in oversized pajamas, kicking his heels, the stuffed fox tucked under his arm. Dee was at the stove. Mike was reading the newspaper. When the doorbell rang at 8:40, it was Aria on the welcome mat with a bakery bag and a plant she didn't know what to do with. She sat at the counter. She ate an egg because Dee made her. She told them, in a voice so tired it barely carried, that Walter Keller had called his lawyer at 5 a.m. and wanted a deal. He was giving up the buyers. The two board members who had taken his money were in custody. The emergency session had ended at 6. As of 4 hours ago, she was the chair of Vance Corporation. The company Slack had crashed when the letter went out. The FBI had been professional. The SEC was coming Monday. "Congratulations," Noah said. "Don't." "Okay." They walked to the park so they could talk away from the kid, and then Liam came anyway, holding Noah's right hand the whole way, and Dee peeled off at the corner to give them space. Two men in navy coats followed at a distance. Aria said she wanted them around for a week. Dee agreed, on the condition nobody spoke to her children and somebody accepted her sandwiches. At the playground, Aria told him about the director job. He gave her every argument he'd rehearsed. She gave him every argument she'd rehearsed. She told him about Dennis Lowell, the contractor who billed $140,000 a year to sign reports he hadn't read. She told him he knew where every fire door in the building was, and Lowell didn't. She told him the letters after his name were negotiable. She told him to take the job. "I don't want my kid thinking his dad got handed something." "Then tell him what it is. He's 7. He'll believe you." "I'm home by 5:30. 5:30? "Okay," he said. She exhaled. "Okay." The trust for Liam stayed. His name got cleared in every correction, every outlet ran. Dale called and apologized, and Noah told him it was all right, even though he wasn't sure yet if it was. Gus, the security guard, couldn't look him in the eye the first week. The receptionist on 48 sent him a handwritten note that he read once and put in a drawer. Keller pleaded in this fall. 11 years. It wasn't enough. It was what the law gave her. Aria ran the company badly at first, and then better. She lost her temper twice. Miriam made her apologize both times. The third time, it didn't happen. The audit turned up 3 small things and 1 big thing, and she acted on all of them. He and Aria didn't rush anything. She had said friends, and she meant friends. Coffees sometimes. A text at 7 in the morning when she wanted his opinion on something. A phone call at 11 at night when a pipe burst on 41, and she wanted to hear a voice that wasn't panicking. In a year, maybe there would be something else to talk about. In a year, not now. They were both too tired for now. Noah moved out of the apartment with the water stain. Liam got his own room. Dee's husband fixed the crack in the concrete walkway without being asked, and sent Noah a picture with the caption, "Handled." There were bad nights, not a lot. He'd wake at 3 with his heart going and the memory of a hand on his jacket, and he'd lie there until it passed. It always passed. On his son's 8th birthday, they ate pancakes at Ralph's Diner on 5th and Colborne, in a booth in the back, at a table where a young woman had once slid an envelope across to him and said she wasn't offering a bribe. Liam had syrup on his chin. Noah wiped it off with his thumb. "Dad." "Yeah, bud." "What's it mean, what you said? About doors?" Noah thought about it. He'd thought about it for a year. Means most days, he'd said, nobody's watching what you do. No camera, no boss, nobody keeping score. Just you and whatever's in front of you and the choice. Most people think the big test is something loud. It isn't. It's quiet. It's a door. And you find out who you are by whether you open it or walk past. Did you know before? Before what, bud? Before the door. Noah looked at his son, at the small syrup-smeared face across the booth, at the hands that were starting already to look less like a little kid's and more like a kid's, at the eyes that believed, for now and maybe forever, that his father was a good man. No, Noah said. I didn't know. Nobody does. That's the whole thing. You don't know until it's in front of you. That's kind of scary. Yeah, it is. But you did the right one. Yeah, bud, I did the right one. So it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be scared. Liam nodded, satisfied with this, and went back to his pancakes. Outside, the street moved. A woman walked a small dog. A truck backed up somewhere. A bell rang on a church 2 blocks over for no reason Noah needed to know. He drank his coffee, which was hot and bitter, and exactly the way he liked it. And he watched his son eat, and he thought about how a man's whole life could turn on the 36 seconds it took to push open a sticking door. He had walked out of that building with his badge and 2 pieces in his pocket and $42 in his checking account. He had walked back in, a year later, through the front lobby, with his son's name in a trust that couldn't be touched, and his own name on an office door 3 floors down from the chairs, and a quiet, steady thing under his feet that hadn't been there before. Not a reward. He didn't think of it as a reward. Rewards were what you got for winning. This wasn't winning. This was just the life that was left after you had refused, at the one moment that mattered, to walk past the door. He finished his coffee. He paid the check. He walked his son out into the cold, bright Tuesday morning, and Liam took his hand without being asked, and they went home.